This is Seth Leibson for townhall.com. It's been attributed to George Carlin that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come with a smile. Ronald Reagan said it will come in the name of liberalism. But what of communism? Recently, Shannon Bream of Fox News interviewed the co-chair of the Democratic Socialists of America, Megan Romer. Last weekend, the New York Times gave her a glowing profile. She comes off friendly, affable, and smiley. What elite media never reports is Miss Romer is a proud member of the Red Star Caucus. The Red Star Caucus defines itself as a Marxist-Leninist caucus in the DSA. The new DSA platform, which the DSA proudly promotes and admits to, ends not just incarceration of criminals, but our entire constitutional structure. As we consider the bloody history of communism, we should recall the words of the great writer Hilaire Belloc, talking about those watching from beyond the grave. He reminds us, quote, "We are watched by large and awful faces from beyond, and on these faces there is no smile," close quote. This Marxist DSA threat is nothing to smile about.
For over 40 years, the Heartland Institute has stood for the ideas that built this country. Free markets, limited government, and individual freedom. Now you're invited to celebrate that legacy in person. Join Heartland on Thursday, September 3rd, for their 42nd anniversary benefit dinner at the historic Palmer House Hilton in downtown Chicago, one of the city's most iconic addresses for over 150 years. This year's keynote speaker is Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who has led Florida through 2 terms of record economic growth, making it one of the fastest growing states in the nation. The evening kicks off with a reception at 5, dinner at 6, an evening of great company, great conversation, and a shared belief in the principles that made America exceptional. Seats are limited, and they will go fast. Reserve yours today at benefit.heartland.org. That's benefit.heartland.org. The Heartland Institute's 42nd Anniversary Benefit Dinner, September 3rd, Palmer House Hilton, Chicago. Don't just believe in freedom, celebrate it.
Feel like you're trying to push a boulder uphill wearing skates? If you run or manage a local business today, you're challenged like never before. We get it, and we want to help. We're Salem Surround. We're a full-service marketing agency that'll help you increase your customer base by designing incredibly effective plans to reach your consumers day, night, and everywhere they might be.
Salem Surround. Meet with a digital marketer today for ideas that will make your business stand out. Visit salemsurround.com.
I know that hiring can be challenging. You sort through tons of resumes and you get too many so-so applicants. You're just waiting for someone to match your role perfectly. Well, now, there's a place where you can meet them fast. ZipRecruiter.
Need to hire right away. Start your search for strong candidates. The right fit awaits. Build your team. Build it sooner. Meet your match on ZipRecruiter.
Just head to ZipRecruiter.com/free right now to try it for free. And you're on your way to meeting your match. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. So try it now. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/free. Once again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Meet your match on ZipRecruiter. Try it free.
Whether you are old or young, no one likes to lose money. The market is at an all-time high. How much risk does your portfolio really have in it? Are you worried that you could lose your hard-earned money? Call TJ Stearns in Arlington Heights at 800-640-2256 for your free risk report. Call right now and we will include a full analysis of your portfolio. Don't wait until it's too late. Call TJ Stearns, a local and longtime sponsor on AM 560. Call 800-640-2256. Call now and tell him AM 560 sent you.
Scott Jennings fearlessly fights back against the mainstream media on the Scott Jennings podcast.
So the Democratic message for the 2026 midterm is, we don't love America. That's it. The message from the left is, as long as people that we don't like are allowed to win elections, we hate America. That's a heck of a thing to be running an election on. We hate America.
Subscribe for free today on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or SalemPodcastNetwork.com.
Foundations of Freedom, a look at America's founding principles and the leaders who shaped our nation.
During the War for Independence, General George Washington, the man we refer to today as the father of our country, led American troops through military defeat after defeat. And in the bitter winter of 1777, he wrote this somber note to a friend in Philadelphia. Quote, "You might have tracked our army from White Marsh to Valley Forge by the blood on their feet," end of quote. Many soldiers continued to march through the deep snows of Pennsylvania without shoes. Others suffered from disease, hunger, and freezing conditions. Nearly 2,000 of Washington's men died, yet George Washington did not lose faith. Amid the hardship, loss, and uncertainty of Valley Forge, he turned to God in prayer. At a time when our nation once again faces division and uncertainty, may we follow Washington's example, kneeling humbly, praying faithfully, and asking God to guide the future of America.
Now, your official weather forecast.
Today, expect sunny skies transitioning to clouds as wildfire smoke creates a hazy atmosphere. The high will reach 87 degrees. Tonight will be mostly cloudy with a low of 68. Tomorrow, anticipate mainly cloudy conditions with cooler temperatures. Rain showers and a thunderstorm are expected later in the afternoon with a high of 78 degrees. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
Portions of the following show may be pre-recorded.
This hourly segment is brought to you by In the Know with Craig Bolanos, powered by VestGen Wealth Partners, Sunday morning at 10 on AM 560 The Answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560 The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Yeah, that sad little man was even more despondent after the tongue lashing he was treated to yesterday morning. That began before we got off the air, of course. But we were off the air before it really got good, before Josh Hawley had his turn at the wheel, and that was some turn. It started with Fauci deciding to on defiance as his approach, in consultation with his team of attorneys that were present. Well, most of them remained present for the entirety of the hearing. One did not. But the choice to be defiant as opposed to be conciliatory, it just speaks to his just incredible ego. I don't know. I don't know how you think this is a good strategy to preserve whatever you think your reputation is, as well as even a legal strategy, which we'll get into momentarily. This is Fauci's tactical choice.
Given Senator Paul's obvious obsession with calling for my prosecution, his repeated slanderous comments about me, and recently his publicly releasing my unredacted personal diary aimed at embarrassing and intimidating me, the only conclusion I can reach is that the sole reason he is calling me before this committee is to get me to say something, anything, that could vindicate his repeated public pledges that I end up, in his words, quote, behind bars, unquote.
Yeah, and so he is going to invoke his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination with respect to the entirety of the hearing, and that's exactly what he did 111 times. It went a little something like this, his response to every question or attempted question.
I said there are so many amendments in the Constitution of the United States of America. I can only choose one. I can only choose one. I plead the fifth. I plead the fifth. 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Anything you say, fifth. Go ahead, ask me a question. Did you? Fifth. A secret document that I think you need to say.
Yeah, and I mean, it worked for Tron Carter, so Tony Fauci thought it would work for him. This was Rand Paul's opportunity, and he deserves some standing here, given that he was one of the driving forces behind yesterday's hearing. This is what Rand Paul had to say about Fauci's tenure.
Admit that the risk of this dangerous research exceeded any possible benefits. Ask forgiveness and pledge to help our government devise safeguards so a man-made epidemic never happens again. Instead of an apology, you have for years avoided responsibility. Regarding the lockdowns, you argue that you did not personally issue every lockdown order, close every school, or impose every mandate. But officials across the country invoked your authority to justify these decisions. And you presented your recommendations not as judgments open to debate, but as dictates of science itself. Your own words demonstrate that you understood the influence you exercised. On March 14th, 2020, you wrote that the task force recommendations were driven by me, yourself, Deb, and CDC. The next day you wrote that you had convinced Mayor Bill de Blasio to close the New York City schools, so you were involved. That same night, Governor Gavin Newsom's chief of staff told you that the governor had decided to close California schools, bars, and restaurants after watching you on television. Presidents, governors, mayors, school boards, corporations, and Congress all bear responsibility for the decisions they made. The COVID lockdown, however, could never have been inflicted without you aiding and abetting the crime. Children lost years of education. Small businesses built over a lifetime disappeared. Patients delayed cancer screenings and other medical care. Families were separated from dying relatives. Workers were ordered to accept a medical procedure or lose their jobs. Worship assembly, employment, education, and travel were restricted in the name of science. While you did not impose every restriction, you used your public authority to justify them.
And the reason, one of the many reasons this hearing is so important is because it compels us to revisit all that was done and who was on which side of these debates and who exhibited a grotesque inhumanity towards their fellow American. Incident after incident after incident. And we should revisit it. Too many people wanted to just walk past it. We got through it. It was a complicated time. We were operating as best we could on imperfect information. Mistakes were made, but let's just all move on. And we've been saying on this show ever since, no, I don't want to. I want to revisit it again and again until there's something approaching a reckoning. And part of the reckoning is the revisiting, is compelling so many people to revisit it who otherwise are inclined to, but maybe need a predicate. This is a pretty good one because Fauci is not out of the legal woods yet, as we'll get to. But before we do that, just the commentary on the DSA flacks that were on the Senate Homeland Security panel yesterday, and with the exception of Fetterman, how they behaved, because they had a choice too. They could distance themselves from Fauci or continue to prop him up and themselves by extension. And again, with the exception of John Fetterman, what did they choose to do? Well, Rand Paul summed it up nicely on Fox after the hearing. A little tidbit that needs to be well known about the documentation that had been gathered by this committee, including Fauci's quote-unquote diary entries.
I don't understand it. I don't understand how they can see 1 million Americans die from dangerous research funded by the government and not be upset about that, not want to get to the bottom of that. So they complain they didn't have records. I have put all the records on an internet site for committee members for a year. Do you know how many Democrats looked at it? They have to get a password. Not one of them asked for the password. We told their offices, you can look at all of this. So they don't seem to care about the truth. I think they want to defend the government more than they want to get to the truth of, did your government actually fund something that led to a pandemic that killed 1 million Americans? I don't know why they would not want to know the truth.
Well, because they were complicit in the lie. That's why they don't want to know the truth. The lies, plural. They were complicit in the draconian authoritarian policies that ruined or certainly negatively impacted so many lives, that killed so many people. So you try to make this a political thing, as you saw Maggie Hassan and others say, oh, they're trying to entrap you. And so this is about Republicans playing politics with COVID as opposed to the sum and substance of what is contained in those 1,100 pages of Fauci diary entries, bumped up against the public commentary on said policies and the basis for the decisions that were advocated for and ultimately adopted in so many places with little resistance, certainly from the COVIDian men and women of the left, and frankly, some who are otherwise sort of center-right commonsensical who got folded into the madness. It's interesting, though. I'll tell you one person who is wanting to provide some professional separation for herself from said sad little man, and that's Deborah Birx. Not just from Fauci, but from all of those lockdown enthusiasts that were represented on the panel, the Senate Homeland Security Committee yesterday. Deborah Birx on News Nation.
When President Trump said to me, we will never close down America again, as what happened, in which I couldn't understand how that happened so rapidly. We put out guidelines to slow the spread, and the next thing we know, everything is closed down. Now I know that Dr. Fauci was having private conversations with these governors and mayors to tell them to close the schools and to tell them, while we were trying to figure out how to contain the virus without doing all of that. A long way of saying, you have to follow what your commander-in-chief is saying to you. That doesn't mean that you change the science. It doesn't mean you change the data, but you figure out a way to execute the plan that they want. So when President Trump on, I think, April 4th said, we'll never do this again to the country, we pivoted to how do we bring testing so that people are aware of their status? No one wants to infect anybody else. But if you get them tests, instead of quarantining people who are exposed, you just only tell the people who are infected to stay home. That is a very different approach. It worked fabulously in universities. It's why we were able to keep them open, and Secretary DeVos was working on keeping K through 12 open. There were solutions, but it became very political, and we all have to be aware, because it was a presidential election year, it was really important for blue states to show that they were taking it very seriously, and they overclosed. And we just have to be honest that happened. And that's why that discussion from both sides of the aisle and a resolution and a way to go forward is critical so that we can do this right in the future.
I mean, the pivot, it's almost mechanical. You can almost hear the gears turning as Deborah Birx pivots away from Fauci and the lockdown artists. Doesn't want any part of what has now been made public as to the thinking, posturing, misdirection, science, in quotation marks. Doesn't want any part of it. Coming up at 5:38, we'll got a lot more on this topic. Particularly, I want to get to Holly's questions, for which there would be no answers. As I mentioned, 111 invocations of the Fifth Amendment. We'll do that at 5:38. Now we check the headlines with Mike Scott.
Dan, good morning. QC Kinetics newsroom time is 5:34. Family, friends, and former teammates gathered to mourn Tim Bankston, former Simeon High School basketball player and a celebrated coach at Thornton Fractional North High School. He was found fatally shot inside of a home, according to police. Charles Bankston was his brother.
It hurts like everything I can never imagine in my life. I didn't cry like this when my mom and dad died. But the love that I have for him, it'll be everlasting.
Sean Wright was a Simeon teammate.
Ben Wilson, him, Kenny Allen. It's a lot of ball players up there. They all touch hands again and welcome them home.
The 60-year-old was a Southside basketball standout who led Simeon to a state title in 1984 during his senior year. That same year, teammate and fellow basketball player Ben Wilson was shot and killed. It remains unclear how long Bankston's body was inside the home before it was discovered. Police have not announced any arrest in that case. Throughout the Chicago area, storm cleanup continues after severe weather. The National Weather Service now confirms 5 tornadoes touched down from storms on Monday. A new tornado in Wheaton started just south of Wheaton College. It was on the ground for 2 minutes, according to the NWS, with a peak width of 100 yards. ComEd says they should have about 90% of power restored today, but many will likely wait until Friday. As of this morning, 31,000 customers, many in the hard-hit areas of the south suburbs, remain in the dark. 2 Joliet residents charged in the death of a Plainfield man found dismembered in Lake Mattoon last month now face murder charges. Will County Grand Jury has indicted Robin Turner and James Adams on murder and other charges. The remains of Dale Wayne Turner were discovered in a lake on June 28. Chicago converting downtown office building into residential space. Mayor Brandon Johnson and other local officials broke ground yesterday on that conversion. Meantime, the mayor was quizzed about the sudden departure of the city's acting chief financial officer after only 8 months on the job. Mayor Johnson downplayed any concerns.
The work doesn't stop because one individual moves on, right? If that was the case, government would never would never be a continuum. People move on all the time, but here's the thing that's most steady. I'm still here.
Several city council members warned the timing will complicate an already challenging budget season. A national consumer advocacy organization is launching a campaign criticizing Rush University Medical Center, arguing the Chicago-based nonprofit hospital is spending taxpayer-supported resources on DEI initiatives that fall outside the hospital's core mission. Will Held is Consumers Research Executive Director.
I can't imagine a context where it's more important to choose people because they're the best you could find rather than they hit some sort of quota around race and sex.
Hild argues nonprofit hospitals need to devote surplus revenue to expanding patient care, research, and medical services. The Milwaukee Public Schools have set up temporary residence in a Wrigleyville hotel, seeking to hire 200 teachers and 150 more full-time aides, while targeting laid-off CPS workers.
We are simply taking advantage of the opportunity to find some really good educators for our kids and our families up in Milwaukee.
Meantime, day 2 of Bears workouts at Hallis Hall, and a much slimmer Caleb Williams talked with reporters. So what's the secret? Williams says sleep and no food after 7 p.m.
How to eat and things like that. Lost some weight, so it's good. I'm excited about that. Be able to move a little bit better, be smoother.
In other Chicago sports, Cardinals walk off the Cubs 3-2. White Sox outlast the Yankees 6-5 in 12 innings. The news, a service of Lowe's Pro Rewards members. Save during Lowe's Pro Savings Days. Save up to 20% on in-stock molding when you spend $250 and up to 20% on in-stock pre-hung interior doors when you buy 6 or more. Valid through 7/31. See Lowe's.com for details. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, and in 2 minutes, a check of our AccuWeather forecast in the Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center.
Sean Fest returns on August 28th at the Westin Chicago Northwest in Itasca. Be a part of a live, on-location broadcast of The Sean Thompson Show, including a performance of the national anthem, followed by live music, food, drinks, and an opportunity to meet Sean Thompson. Registration is free. Go to 560theanswer.com/SeanFest. That's 560theanswer.com/SHAUN-Fest. Sponsored in part by LeavingIL.com and by Unique Wooden Flags.
I remember sitting in the kitchen, heartbroken, overwhelmed, staring at costs and a list of decisions. I prayed for strength and reached out to Catholic Cemeteries of Chicago, only to hear that Mom had already pre-planned everything so my siblings and I would be protected. Because she planned ahead, we weren't pulled apart by heartbreaking decisions.
Visit CatholicCemeteriesChicago.org or call 708-236-5400 to schedule a free consultation.
Have you been watching gold and silver lately? Hard to ignore. Back in January of 2025, silver was under $30 an ounce, and now it's more than doubled. Again, not bad, right? Some experts say this bull market is just getting started. Others say it's a good time to take some money off the table. Either way, whether you're buying or selling, Fox Valley Coins in Naperville is the place to go. They stock large quantities of all the major bullion coins and bars. And here's what sets them apart. Unlike places that only pay melt value, Fox Valley Coins pays more for high-grade coins and scarcer dates. That's real money left in your pocket. They also buy scrap sterling flatware, jewelry, silver-plated items, and old proof sets. And they specialize in U.S. and foreign collector and investment coins and currency, both buying and selling. Fox Valley Coins, one light north of I-88 on Route 59 at Ferry Road in Naperville. Family-owned with integrity since 1981.
Maybe you've thought about taking a cruise. Maybe you've even talked yourself out of it. But this is not just another vacation. This is the Gulf of America cruise. 7 days through the Caribbean with Mike Gallagher, Scott Jennings, Larry O'Connor, Jennifer Horn, and a ship full of people who love this country. No packing and unpacking, no complicated planning, just great destinations, meaningful conversations, and a once-in-a-generation celebration of America's 250th. This November, be there. Text CRUISE to 94878 to book your cabin today.
Nothing makes a gathering great like Eggland's Best Eggs. They're just so delicious with better nutrition, too. For us, it's eggs any style, as long as they're the best. Eggland's Best.
Now, your official weather forecast.
Today, expect sunshine to be replaced by clouds as wildfire smoke creates a hazy sky. The temperature will reach a high of 87. Tonight will be mostly cloudy with a low of 68. Tomorrow, anticipate mainly cloudy skies with cooler temperatures. Rain showers and a thunderstorm are expected late in the afternoon with a high of 78. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Yo, anybody see my diary? Oh, there it is. I gotta write this down. Check it out. Dear diary, I'm having a little problem. I can't make it by myself, maybe you can help me solve them. I'm confused and I don't know what to do. I'm hoping you can help me cause there's no one else to talk to. I want a job but it ain't for me. I try to talk to my dad but my old man ignores me. He says I'm delirious and I drink too much so he doesn't take me serious. But little does he know I'm really losing it. I got a head but ain't no screws in it.
There it is. Tony Fauci talking about Tony Fauci's diary, 111 times invoking his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination, which is a question. And is a matter of legal debate whether he had the right to do that without consequence. And Rand Paul essentially suggested as much when he announced that he did not because of the Biden pardon that covers 2014 to 2025, and a contempt resolution would be forthcoming from this committee. And Rand Paul later said that it was his belief that the committee, majority of Republicans, will pass this contempt resolution and refer the matter to the Department of Justice for potential prosecution of contempt of Congress.
The period of your pardon at any point between January 1st, 2014 and January 19th, 2025, did you destroy any federal record or tell anyone else to?
Under the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Given that you have a unlimited presidential pardon, what is your specific objection that you are making?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
My question was limited to the period of your pardon only. I find your objection unsupported and direct you to answer the question.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Because you refuse to answer, citing a privilege that is unsupported, because of your pardon, and after being denied to do so, this committee has scheduled a vote next week on a resolution certifying your contempt.
So that combined with Tommy Tuberville, the senator from Alabama, who's going to be the governor of Alabama, and James Utheimer, who is the attorney general of Florida, both of those individuals are looking at state-level charges against Tony Fauci, as actually Steve Hilton, the Republican nominee for governor of California, also suggested during the that jungle primary that he ultimately finished in the top two to go off to the runoff against Becerra. Now, it's unlikely Steve Hilton gets elected governor of California. But in the other two cases, Utheimer in Florida and Tuberville in Alabama, those are very much open questions. So he's not out of the legal woods yet, even if there's an ultimately a determination that he was allowed to invoke his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. There's an 1896 case, I think we talked about this before, after Fauci was given this expansive pardon by the big guy. 1896 case, Brown v. Walker. And what the Supreme Court held in that case was once a witness was provided essentially immunity for a specific crime or time period that involved the possibility of specific criminal activity, you could no longer, upon testimony, upon being subpoenaed to testify before Congress, you could no longer invoke your Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination because there's no threat of self-incrimination. And that's the position that Rand Paul is taking. That's the position Josh Hawley is taking. Josh Hawley, of course, former Attorney General of Missouri. He is a pretty shrewd attorney, as you're about to hear, by the way. Devastating. Perhaps the most devastating portion of the hearing yesterday was Josh Hawley's recitation of Tony Fauci's venality. But just to close the loop on this for now, the right to incriminate, the right against self-incrimination. The argument, though, could go that, yes, like for the specific destruction of federal records charge, Fauci ordering staff to destroy emails and so forth against a federal order to preserve records. And that's covered by the pardon. However, you could say, well, if I start answering questions about what I did during this time period of 2014 to 2025, in which I have this blanket pardon, I could say something that is, in real time, so not covered by the pardon, that exposes me to that generates legal exposure, criminal legal exposure for me. So if I start going back to that period and answering questions, then I could potentially be tripped up, say something that you could pull back evidence to suggest is untrue in real time, and now I've got potential exposure for a perjury charge. This is the matter that is unsettled. So when people say, well, it's not exactly clear, the Supreme Court offered that narrow decision in that 1896 case, but there are arguments, as there usually are, to suggest that this is not exactly on point because of the testimony that is both seeking answers for retrospective acts that are covered, as well possibly, he didn't know where the questions were going to go, possibly real-time matters that are not covered by the pardon. Okay, I hope that provides some clarity. By the way, for people keep asking, how did Rand obtain the quote-unquote diary? Again, it's not clear. There hasn't been like a forensic chain of custody distillation of this that's been presented to the public. But clearly, I assume it's in combination with RFK Jr. at HHS that Fauci had memorialized these diary entries on taxpayer-funded computers, taxpayer-funded server. So it was a matter of work product associated with his position and thus discoverable and thus disclosable. That seems to me how this came to be. Josh Hawley now picking up on Mr. Fifth Amendment. And, once you, and by the way, one other matter, once you invoke your Fifth Amendment right to a right against self-incrimination, you can't pick and choose. I mean, that's certainly the criminal legal standard. You can't pick and just say, okay, I'm going to answer this question, but I'm not going to answer the other ones. You're either going to make a blanket invocation or you're going to answer questions, but you can't do a meatball sundae. And so Hawley, of course, knows this, and this is why he asked these embarrassing questions to make Fauci look even more ridiculous than he already looked coming into the hearing.
Chairman, well, nothing says honesty like taking the fifth, huh, Doc? Let's try something. What day of the week is it today?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color tie are you wearing?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color's the carpet in front of you?
I love carpet.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Let's just get one thing straight. You don't have any rights under the Fifth Amendment because you've been pardoned, as you very well know. As the Supreme Court has been clear for a century and more, Brown versus Walker, 1896, when he has been pardoned, he may not stand upon his privilege. You know that. Your lawyers sitting behind you now shifting nervously in their chairs, they know it. This isn't about the Constitution. This isn't about the law. This is about contempt. Contempt for this body and contempt for the American people. But I think I know why you're doing it. It's because you don't want to answer questions. It's because you did all kinds of terrible things. It's because during the pandemic, you got rich, didn't you? You got rich while people were dying, hundreds of thousands of Americans, over 1 million in the end, and you were getting rich.
Now, before we get to what Hawley was about to get to, again, what he said about the case law is correct, but it's not necessarily dispositive of the issue. He's not the only one who believes that. Ryan Goodman, and more, too, the other question is just strategically. As I said, because he invoked his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination, even if that were to stand as legitimate, he still has the possibility of a DOJ prosecution for contempt of Congress. He still has the possibility of state level charges, as I mentioned. So and you're 85 years old, and this is the way you want to go down. So, I mean, you still have legal exposure. Your reputation that was in tatters coming in got shredded exponentially more. And so I question the legal strategy here. I just don't think it gets an 85-year-old guy very much benefit to do what Fauci did yesterday and play the fool, and the very guilty-looking fool at that. Ryan Goodman, NYU professor at NYU Law.
Does that just make it worse, and is he in real trouble?
I think it makes it worse. It's even a curious way in which you wonder what his legal advice was, why they decided to do that. Yeah. Because he does not face criminal jeopardy for the pardon in all likelihood. He's pardoned for all actions before January 2025. But that also means that you're forced to testify. That's how prosecutors use immunity or pardons, and they say now you're forced to testify because you don't have any criminal liability, what we're going to ask you about. So then to plead the Fifth is actually, he could then be held in contempt. There could be, theoretically at least, a Justice Department that goes after him for not answering when he is not really facing that criminal charge.
Yeah, but again, you also have the saber-rattling going on about the prospect of state-level charges, and so he can also argue that in terms of his right against self-incrimination. Okay. Back to Josh Hawley and what he was intimating, you got rich. And a lot of people make that claim, but don't provide the evidentiary basis for the claim. That's not Josh Hawley.
What were these individuals doing in the depth of the pandemic in November of 2020 when millions of Americans were suffering from COVID? What were they doing? I tell you what they're doing. Folkers was on your behalf soliciting and gathering information for a cash award. Let's look at it. We've got his email right here, right over my shoulder. Volker says, I'm working on this nomination for the Dan David Award for Fauci. We need to beef up the COVID part. Do you have language in the can that you could share that delineates how we responded in new ways to COVID? He sends this to multiple federal employees. What was the Dan David Award? Do you remember, Doc?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
It was a $900,000 cash award. $900,000 cash award. And he got it because he used federal employees to get it. And this wasn't the only award, was it, Dr. Fauci? In fact, you applied for and received at least 8 other federal cash prizes on federal time using federal employees and federal resources. Here they are over my shoulder. Besides the Dan David Award, you've got the Partnership for Public Service, you've got the Adelson Prize, you've got the Smithsonian Award, you've got the National Academy of Medicine's Award, you've got the CDC Foundation. In fact, you turned your staff into a full-time application machine. You actually wrote to people and said, do you think maybe I'd qualify? And you got cash for all of this. And it wasn't just 1 or 2 employees, was it? In fact, you used 8 separate federal employees on federal time using federal resources to solicit cash awards. Isn't that true?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Here they are right over my shoulder. Here's all of them. The people that you use, federal employees, so that you could go and get cash money. And the most hilarious part is that you weren't content to even dragoon them into applying for all of these cash awards. You then had them go out to the ethics agencies and ethics watchdogs and demand that you be able to get the money. That's right. We've got it in your emails. Your staff and employees on federal time, using federal resources, being paid with federal dollars, are soliciting cash for you. And then they're turning around and saying to the agency, we don't want just an answer. We want to get to yes, because Fauci wants the money. He wants it.
I mean, it's just devastating to me. And by the way, great use of the word dragoon by Hawley. Here was Hawley's close on Fauci's ignominious tenure.
At the end of the day, it wasn't just about the money, really, was it? It was really about a power trip. I mean, through all of this, you want to be the most famous scientist in the world. You were so focused on getting every award and every drop of cash that you could, all because you wanted to be on TV. You wanted to be the sun god of science. You wanted to be the guy who was in charge of it all. You wanted to lambast Trump. You wanted to make sure that nobody else stole your spotlight. You wanted to be the guy. You had time to sit for InStyle magazine. Here's what you were doing with your time. You could sit for InStyle magazine, but you can't answer questions for the American people. You could sit for InStyle magazine, but you're here taking the fifth. You could sit for InStyle magazine and get $1 million in cash awards, but now the cat's got your tongue. I bet he does. I tell you what, here's my conclusion from all of this. This was really all about you the whole time. Somewhere along the way, you lost your way. You may have been a good public servant at one time. I don't know. But I can tell you from reading your emails now, from looking at what you did, how you used your employees, somewhere along the line, it became all about you. You became a narcissist and a megalomaniac and a liar. And you've lied to the American people, and you've lied to this body. And you've disgraced your profession by doing it. You called yourself the most famous scientist in the world. You've done more to harm science than anybody in my lifetime. And I hope you'll go home and write that in your diary.
Oh. I mean, I've heard it a few times now, but every time I have the same reaction. Kill shots. Coming up at 6:06, more reflections on yesterday's hearing as well as the whole COVID era, and we'll take yours too. 312-642-5600, Alpha Wealth Group, alphawealthgroup.com answer line. It's on 6 o'clock on AM 560 WIND.
A night of American bombing. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. Retaliation that Iran was warned about.
Just 12 hours after President Trump warned Iran would get a beating, U.S. forces launched heavy strikes against the regime. U.S. Central Command released a statement saying CENTCOM forces successfully completed a heavy wave of strikes against Iran in response to yesterday's attempted missile attacks on U.S. forces. The strikes aim to further diminish threats posed by Iran and its proxies to American forces, commercial shipping, and neighboring Gulf countries.
Fox's Trey Yingst, Tel Aviv. Iran's targeted ships again in the Strait of Hormuz. 2 natural gas sites hit with drones at an Egyptian port. And Reuters reports China's going to supply Iran with weapons, 400 shoulder-fired air defense missiles that could target American fighter jets. U.S. Ambassador to NATO Matt Whitaker tells Fox.
This is a very concerning report, and obviously China needs to stay out of this fight. It's not their fight.
Russia went on the attack overnight in Ukraine again, killing at least 8 civilians.
The heaviest damage reported in Ukraine's western Lviv and eastern Dnipropetrovsk regions. President Zelensky's praised his warriors for achieving incredible things despite a critical shortage of air defences. NATO member Poland scrambled fighter jets to protect its border due to the proximity of attacks.
That's Fox's Jonathan Savage. Dr. Anthony Fauci could face criminal charges. Republican Senator Rand Paul tells Fox they will next week consider holding Fauci in contempt of Congress.
I think if that resolution passes our committee, which it will, that it could simply be referred directly to the Department of Justice.
This after Republican senators badgered the ex-presidential COVID advisor at a hearing over his private diaries, accusing Fauci of contradicting public comments about COVID's origins and policies he pushed during the pandemic. But Fauci refused to answer any questions.
Given Senator Paul's obvious obsession with calling for my prosecution,
another Senate committee has postponed a vote today on Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche's nomination. America's listening to Fox News.
60 degrees. At 6:02 on AM 560, The Answer. Good morning. I'm Mike Scott in the QC Kinetics newsroom. Here are the stories we're following on WIND Chicago. The Chicago Sun-Times reporting this morning that a key member of the Chicago Police Oversight Body is urging the City Council to postpone the search for a permanent police superintendent until after the mayoral election. As president of the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability, Anthony Driver led the nationwide search that led to Mayor Brandon Johnson selecting Larry Snelling. Driver stepped down as president to mount a losing race for Congress, but he's still on the commission and involved in the search. In a letter to city council members, Driver Wednesday asked that the November 12 deadline for the commission to complete a nationwide search, interview candidates, and present names of finalists to the mayor be put off until spring, after Chicagoans choose their next mayor. Family, friends, and former teammates gathered to mourn Tim Bankston yesterday, a former Simeon High School basketball player and coach at Thornton Fractional North High School, after he was found fatally shot inside of a home. Charles Bankston is his brother.
It hurts like everything I can never imagine in my life. I didn't cry like this when my mom and dad died. But the love that I have for him, it'll be everlasting.
The 60-year-old was a Southside basketball legend who led Simeon to their state title in 1984. Same year, teammate and fellow senior and basketball player Ben Wilson was shot and killed. It remains unclear how long Bankston's body was inside that home on the south side before it was discovered. Police have not announced any arrests in that case. Chicago sports. Cardinals walk off the Cubs 3-2. White Sox outlast the Yankees 6-5. The news, a service of the AM 560 Advantage, where membership has its privileges, and you can join today at 560theanswer.com/join. Traffic and weather on the way next on AM 560.
Mike Gallagher sees a party off the rails.
Tim Walz doubling down on his decision to pardon
a child rapist in order for the child rapist not to be deported. This is systemic in the Democrat Party. This is who they are. This is where they've landed. They're now cheering on the pardoning of convicted child rapists.
The Mike Gallagher Show, weekdays at 9 on AM 560, The Answer. Sign up for the AM 560 Answer Advantage to get early alerts on event ticket sales, special discounts, and contest opportunities. Sign up today at 560theanswer.com/advantage.
It's peaceful here. Quiet. But it wasn't always. Here, the past isn't confined to textbooks or museums. It's in the soil, a pulse within the earth. Here, you can walk in step with history, where others once marched towards the unknown. The past is never really behind us. It's here, under our feet. The land never forgets the stride of the weary or the reach of the hopeful. The land remembers. And so does the American Battlefield Trust, dedicated to preserving America's hallowed battlegrounds. Now, on our nation's 250th birthday, become a member so the next acre becomes the next chapter. The next chapter becomes the next lesson. Join the trust. Protect the future. Go to battlefields.org.
Well, it's official. My friends have all switched to Pure Talk because I told them they could save a bunch of money on a super reliable high-speed network with unlimited data. And because they're my friends, they trust me. As for the rest of you, well, Pure Talk understands that even though you might like me, you're not just going to take my word for it, nor should you. For that reason, and for a very limited time, Pure Talk is offering any of their plans for just $15 a month for the first 3 months, including their top-tier unlimited plan that normally sells for $65 a month. Think of it like a test drive, a super simple way to save $150 while you kick the tires on Pure Talk's blazing fast network, and a fine way to see for yourself why I switched from big wireless, along with a few 100,000 of my closest friends. Dial pound 250, say Mike Rowe, and be connected to Pure Talk's friendly U.S. customer service team. Again, dial pound 250, say Mike Rowe, and let the savings begin.
QC Kinetics helps active people stay active. People like David Boardman, police officer, competitive athlete, and gym owner who trains hard almost every day.
My body's taken a lot of abuse over the years. I've had multiple knee surgeries on both of my knees. I could barely run a mile prior to going to QC Kinetics. Doctors have all told me, hey, you are going to need knee replacements.
But QC Kinetics gave David great news.
We're going to give you the opportunity to have not one, but 2 healthy knees, and we don't have to cut you open.
And after David's regenerative treatments at QC Kinetics?
Since I've gone to them, I run 20, 30 miles a week. I really wouldn't be able to do that if it wasn't for QC Kinetics.
From knee pain to Ironman training.
It's a no-brainer.
Now it's your turn. Call QC Kinetics to book your free consultation today.
Call QC Kinetics, 312-827-6261. That's 312-827-6261. 312-827-6261.
Gain insight into building strong marriages and raising godly children with Focus on the Family with Jim Daly each weekday at 11:30 a.m. on our sister station, AM 1160. Hope for your life.
6:08. Let's get an update on the roads. Team Hochberg Traffic Center time. Hillside accident reported at Manheim and Madison. All over Waukegan this morning because of the ongoing power outages there at many major intersections. Traffic signals are still dark. Treat those as 4-way stops. Southside Auburn Gresham neighborhood this early morning. 87th eastbound and westbound between Vincennes and Halstead entirely shut down. A crash there reported with multiple injuries. Traffic, a service of the AM 560 mobile app. Listen to AM 560 on your smartphone when you download the mobile app at 560theanswer.com/mobile. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Now a check of your forecast in the Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center.
Today, expect sunny skies transitioning to clouds as wildfire smoke creates a hazy atmosphere. The high will reach 87 degrees. Tonight will be mostly cloudy with a low of 68. Tomorrow, anticipate mainly cloudy conditions with cooler temperatures. Rain showers and a thunderstorm are expected later in the afternoon with a high of 78 degrees. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
This hourly segment is brought to you by The Real Story with Jeannie Ives and Amy Jacobson. Heard weekday mornings at 11 on AM 560, The Answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. And as William Faulkner wrote in Requiem for a Nun, the past is never dead, it's not even past. All of us labor in webs spun long before we were born, webs of heredity and environment, of desire and consequence, of history and eternity. And I say that because the past that we did live through during COVID is very much present, and we were reminded of that yesterday. The consequences of the policy choices that were made by policymakers and proselytized by people like Tony Fauci to instigate the madness that took hold of this country in most places. Still feeling the consequences of that. Still trying actually to assess the damage that was done. Takes time, particularly when it comes to things like kids' intellectual, social, emotional development. And so whistling Tony Fauci back and disclosing all that Rand Paul had obtained in terms of his private communications to himself to ostensibly frame a forthcoming memoir, it's so important. It gives us a chance to reflect back on who did what, how did we behave, do we remember the depths to which we sunk? And so many of us went along with it. Shouldn't forget, for the purpose of making sure we don't fall into these traps, these off-ramps into insanity that we participated in or tolerated for years. And then you come to a state like Illinois and you look around and you say, for all of the bitching about who hasn't been held accountable in any meaningful way until yesterday or till this week at the federal level, I'm sorry, what have we done to hold COVIDians in Illinois accountable? We were one of the worst states. Deborah Birx talking about blue states over locked down. Illinois is at the top of the list. California is at the top of the list. Reflections? I've got a few. How about you? 312-642-5600, alphawealthgroup.com. Call and text line. Bill Malugin does. Bill Malugin, Fox News. Living in L.A. during COVID was quite the trip. Solo paddleboarders being arrested in Malibu with beaches closed and police patrolling the sand. And not in the fun David Hasselhoff kind of way either. Sand being poured into skate parks in Venice. An unelected non-medical doctor, in quotes, Barbara Ferrer, calling the shots. Like Pritzker and his public health director, and the Rona Busters, Lightfoot and Arwady. Remember them? Going back to Malugin. Banning outdoor dining, including forcing restaurants to turn their TVs off. Then later admitting they had no medical evidence to support it. Meanwhile, of course, Patrick Bateman, the governor there, living it up at the French Laundry. vaccine mandates to enter establishments, all while they were falsely inflating COVID-19 hospitalization data in local hospitals to justify the panic, not differentiating who was hospitalized with COVID or for COVID. If you broke your leg and tested positive for COVID, even with no symptoms, you were counted as a COVID hospitalization in LA County. Those numbers were used to impose lockdowns and strict rules. So many businesses never recovered. Justin Hart, one of the resources that was prominent. We leaned on him quite a bit during COVID. He posted some good reflections, remembrances. How about in June of 21, John Rahm is pulled off the course at Muirfield. He's got a 6-stroke lead. This is the most egregious thing, but it's indicative of the lunacy. John Rahm has a 6-stroke lead in the Memorial. He's pulled off the course at Muirfield because he tested positive for COVID. Playing golf outside, him and his caddy. And of course, for the weekend warrior golfers, we all remember the one person per cart or the plastic divider in the carts, 1 or 2 people per boat. Because J.B. Pritzker and Lori Lightfoot at the time were following the science. Were they? How about videos of proms where prom couples are having to dance back to back with their arms interlocked behind them because that's the only way that a prom could go on? And of course, the media. 2 headlines from NBC News the same week in June of 2020. Rally for Black Trans Lives draws packed crowd to Brooklyn Museum Plaza. Same week. President Trump plans to rally his supporters next Saturday for the first time since most of the country was shuttered by the coronavirus. The health experts are questioning the decision. NPR reporting December of 2020. Basically the end of the first year of COVID. A new poll finds 40% of respondents believe in a baseless conspiracy theory that coronavirus was created in a lab in China. Zero evidence for this. Scientists say the virus was transmitted to humans from another species. That's about 10 months after Tony Fauci is memorialized in his diary as saying the opposite, as is a majority of the scientists that he references speaking to about the topic at the front of the pandemic. Your reflections, memories that light the corners of your mind. 312-642-5600, alphawealthgroup.com, call and text line, and in New Lenox.
Hi, yes. My hope has been that for these 10 years of not being able to talk to people about your feelings of being your conservative ideas and just about COVID even, that finally, if this is exposed, this is on the media, the truth about what they did to us, we can finally start having a dialogue and reach these emotionally sick, hateful people that just their brains live in a cave. And I just finally, that's all. That's my hope, because I have so much buried inside of me that I want to express of what they've done to us.
Thanks for the call, Ann. Yeah, it is emotional. People have had to quell their emotions with respect to all the barbaric things that were done, in part because they were done by friends and family members. I get it. And accountability. James Tallarico, Low T Jimmy, running for Senate down in Texas, the DSA candidate for Senate down there. He posted on X, December of 2021. I just got the coolest action figure for Christmas. Thank you to all the healthcare superheroes working today. Let's help by getting vaxxed and boosted. It's a Tony Fauci real-life action figure. I've forgotten about that there were actually those things. There were. Ready to have a little bit of Tony Fauci action figure backyard barbecue? Tellerico. Does that speak to the judgment? Is that a guy you want to send to the Senate? Knowing what you have to be willfully blind and deaf and dumb not to know today? And you know, Josh Hawley referred to that clip we played at the end of last hour. He had all the time to spend on magazine spreads, and that's In Style one that's going around now is just perfect illustration of the sociopath that this guy is. The good doctor, and he's sitting on a chair in front of a pool with his shades on, and the juxtaposition. I mean, there's so many pictures you can juxtapose it with, but a lot of them are really heartbreaking. And this is not unique. It's just illustrative. Two medical professionals looking through a window, ostensibly at a hospital or healthcare facility, outside to people outside because they weren't allowed to come in. Two healthcare professionals in full hazmat suits posting signs on the window, apparently to family members and loved ones outside of this facility. Handwritten signs taped to the window. He is at peace. We are so sorry. David Harsanyi on Monday, we talked about that. His recounting while Tony Fauci was having dinners at Jake Tapper's house and posing for magazine spreads, and he had a friend who had to bury their son, and they couldn't go to the funeral. Does that resonate? We're not talking about macro stats here. We're talking about personal affronts. Tom, Northwest Side.
Dan, I was so angry when I heard you're speaking about Fauci. It takes me back to my mom, who was in a nursing home, who, as you just said, I couldn't see her, saw her every day, visited every day, helped with meals every day. She couldn't take care of herself, and they couldn't do it either, and they would or couldn't. At any rate, I am so angry when you bring up Fauci. I'm so angry at that fat slob Pritzker for his following science and the other nonsense that he spewed out for how many years. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to just vent my anger at and just speak about the deplorable conditions my mom had to endure and my family had to endure because of people like Fauci and people like Pritzker and all the people like under Biden. It brings me back. I'm sorry, I'm just ranting. I'm a little angry right now.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Thanks for the call. Mike in Union.
Dan. Hey, Dan, since Dr. Fauci was a public servant and he benefited personally with all this cash that he got, does all this, in light of all the facts that they've obtained on our emails that he used, is he civilly liable for any of these? Secondly, where do I get my reimbursement for the taxes I had to pay for borrowing from my 401k in light of the fact that it was all bullshit? So, thanks, man.
Thanks, Mike. Josh Hawley made the point that using federal employees and federal resources to pursue personal remuneration, awards, and cash prizes, as the evidence suggests, is arguably a violation of federal law. But, of course, those violations are covered by the Biden pardon. In terms of state-level civil exposure, in terms of state-level offenses, it's one thing to say criminal referrals for state-level offenses, but what offense are you trying to make out? There are criminal referrals at the state level on Fauci and Birx and others, but some of them are, frankly, just living in the real world. A reach. You're not going to see him indicted or him and others indicted on manslaughter or murder charges. That's not going to happen. So, we need to be very specific about the evidence that can be used at the state level. I mean, in terms of what it implicates per state statute, what kind of real legal exposure he has. But going for some sort of murder charge or involuntary manslaughter charge or negligent homicide charge, no. I think realistically, the best chance you have for any sort of legal reckoning, criminal legal reckoning, is a contempt of Congress charge. And that's in doubt. Jerome, Palos Hills.
Hey, good morning, Dan. Yes, I was thinking that probably all those that are responsible for all the stuff they did to people under COVID are going to probably escape through the statute of limitations.
Thanks for the call. I mean, not necessarily. It really depends on the specific individual, the specific fact pattern, the specific statute that's implicated. It's more trying to find, it's more trying to frankly pierce sovereign immunity that public officials enjoy, which is consequential, and find applicable statutes for which you can make out a colorable case. I think that's the bigger challenge once you get past the contempt of Congress charge. Chris, Rogers Park.
Hey, Dan, I had a comment about the media running cover, but to your point here right now, it was cathartic to watch Moreno do his F-bomb and talk about why he ran. And it was just wonderful to see that. I mean, when he started telling people to stand up, if this or that, it kind of felt like Revenge of the Nerds. I mean, Tony Fauci.
And Tony Fauci's ogre or... yeah.
Well, no, Tony Fauci this is like Revenge of the Nerds Part 6 or something. Tony Fauci is a nerd, and he became cool, and it went to his head, and he definitely overstepped. And this is, it's just, the thing about the media running cover though, and him doing the fifth, it's smart because the media is going to spare it. They're going to ignore it. Last night on CNN, they had a white coat doctor telling people again that Trump says to inject bleach. It's just unbelievable.
Thanks for the call, Chris. Well, just first of all, with the instant request for Ohio Senator Bernie Moreno, here it is.
To idiotic politicians who enforce those rules, arrested that mom for watching a football game with her own family outside. When that story broke, I said to myself, I cannot stand idly on the side and watch this happen. It was about 6 years ago today that I decided I'm going to give up my businesses, sell them all, run for office, run for the United States Senate. Here I am sitting in front of you 6 years later saying, who the do you think you were for doing that?
Hey-o.
It is a total disgrace what you did to this country. And if my Democrat colleagues are standing there defending you, I hope the voters of the United States of America watch the clips of every one of you doting on a guy who was more interested in being a celebrity than saving American people.
Mm-hmm. Bob, Edison Park.
Yeah, Dan, I wonder, the state of Illinois wants to sue the federal government over revenue loss for tariffs. Could that same logic be used for businesses to sue the state of Illinois over lost revenue from lockdowns? I mean, I'm no lawyer, but it sounds right to me.
Thanks for the call, Bob. I mean, the difference is you have a Supreme Court case on the tariffs weighing in, saying it exceeded Trump's authority, so that it was an abrogation of the law, effectively. You don't necessarily have the same thing with respect to lockdowns. But here's what I would tell you, though. This is more for, a practicing trial lawyer. I don't pretend to be one or would ever want to be one, frankly. But I think, and I said this during COVID a lot, I think you have a claim here for an illegal taking by government. that the government effectively took your property. And this is what they tried to, this is what the PPP was about. This is what the loans and the grant programs is about. It was sort of a backdoor way to compensate for a government taking. But if it was insufficient, I think you have a claim that you were not properly compensated for a government taking, and it was a government taking that was fraudulent in nature. There was no legitimate government purpose for this taking because it was predicated on a fraud. People knew that the basis they were claiming was not legitimate, and they used it anyway for a taking for which you were not compensated or insufficiently compensated. I'd like to see a creative trial lawyer, and I believe they should exist for, reasons of fraud and people being injured. This is what the law is for. It's just they take it too far, but I'll do my diatribe on the plaintiff's bar another day. But I'd like to see a creative trial lawyer make a takings case against the government on behalf of a business or multiple businesses. I think there is something there, especially knowing what we're coming to know now. Chris and Carrie.
Hey, Dan, let's not forget that Pritzker sent his family to Florida during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Away from the lockdown state. Into the open state.
Yeah, the horse farm in Wellington. We could follow his daughter's postings on Instagram. I remember. It's nice down there, the free state of Florida. He despises it, and DeSantis was reckless, and he was killing people. But that's where I sent my daughter to enjoy our horse farm. Uh-huh. Right. And the reckoning for Pritzker? Right. Thus the problem. No consequence for bad conduct. Tom Oswego.
Good morning, Dan. You know me, I've run a business for about 37 years, and in my business, I make decisions probably every minute or every hour that could really, change the way my business runs. I think the thing that burns me the most with politicians, and not just Fauci, although he's at the top of the scumbag list, a lot of these politicians, there's no consequence. And yeah, we could say they got indicted, they get, they this and that. I want to see them in jail for this crap. Because if I did some of the stuff they did, yes, I'd probably have somebody knocking on my door and taking me away. But it doesn't happen to these people. And so myself, my 3 adult children, all professionals, they see this on television and they just get despondent. They're thinking, why am I busting my tail every morning for this when these people are taking what we're earning and there's no consequence? They just walk away rich. Isn't Fauci, now I don't know if he's retired, but doesn't he have about a $480,000 pension? Well, I'll tell you what, I have no pension. And I'm struggling because they keep taking more. It's just, I buried a sister down in Florida who they immediately put on a respirator. They didn't do any type of alternative medicines which could have kept her alive. I had to say goodbye through a glass partition. So, and I know I'm just one of probably millions that this happened to. It just aggravates me to no end that, again, there's no consequence for these people.
Thanks for the call, Tom. Appreciate it. A text from 312. The fact I was forced to take that stupid shot or else I would be fired is insane. This is a female. I literally lost my period for 2 years. My doctor told me I was her 4th patient that it happened to after taking that stupid vaccine. And what were you getting if you were not complying? You were getting scolded by people like Chuck Todd.
Please get vaccinated. If you know someone who's not vaccinated, find a way to convince them to get vaccinated. Literally, the only people dying are the unvaccinated. And for those of you spreading misinformation, shame on you. Shame on you. People are needlessly dying because of your misinformation. Think about it. I don't know how some of you sleep at night who are doing this for a living on television. Okay.
Yeah. Shame on me, you yapping little terrier, Chuck Todd. Shame on me. This is why it's so important to revisit it again and again. until there is some progress made towards the mean. Coming up at 6:36, we'll switch gears and talk about the Chi-Coms. Has China cloned your congressman? Could you tell if they did? Now we check the headlines with Mike Scott.
63 degrees and sunshine in the QC Kinetics newsroom. Here in Chicago, family, friends, and former teammates gathered last night to mourn Tim Bankston, former Simeon High School basketball player, state champion, and celebrated coach at Thornton Fractional North High School after he was found fatally shot inside a home on the south side. Charles Bankston is his brother.
It hurts like everything I can never imagine in my life. I didn't cry like this when my mom and dad died. But the love that I have for him, it'll be everlasting.
The 60-year-old was a Southside basketball legend who led Simeon to a state title in 1984. That same year, teammate and fellow basketball player Ben Wilson was shot and killed. It remains unclear how long Bankston's body was inside the home before it was discovered. Police have not announced any arrests. China is reportedly sending some 400 handheld missile launchers to Iran. Reuters says Iran purchased hundreds of shoulder-fired air defense systems along with Chinese missiles for around $70 million. Dr. Anthony Fauci faced a grilling by the Senate Homeland Security Committee with questions on the origin of COVID-19 and the government's response. Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa.
He demonstrated to the American people that you aren't good enough for me to answer any questions. His silence was very telling.
Just days before the hearing, Senator Rand Paul released pages from a Anthony Fauci diary. Todd Blanche's nomination to become Attorney General has stalled this morning. As lawmakers have scrapped plans for a key vote, Republicans are demanding more assurances about the settlement of President Donald Trump's lawsuit against the IRS. Throughout the Chicago area this morning, cleanup continues after severe storms. The National Weather Service now confirms 5 tornadoes touched down on Monday. The newly discovered tornado in Wheaton. It started just south of Wheaton College. It was on the ground for about 2 minutes or less. As of this morning, around 30,000 ComEd customers remain without power. The search for answers after a tragic incident in Downers Grove this week continues. 2 contractors were trapped underground in a storm sewer during Monday's storms. One was rescued, the other died. OSHA is now launching an investigation today into that incident. The federal agency has 6 months to complete that investigation. Chicago sports. Cardinals walk off the Cubs 3-2. White Sox outlast the Yankees 6-5. Day 2 of Bears workouts at Hallis Hall. No pads until next week. The news, a service of the AM 560 Advantage, where membership has its privileges. And you can join today. 560theanswer.com/join. Traffic and weather on the way next on AM 560.
Sean Fest returns on August 28th at the Westin Chicago Northwest in Itasca. Be a part of a live on-location broadcast of The Sean Thompson Show, including a performance of the national anthem, followed by live music, food, drinks, and an opportunity to meet Sean Thompson. Registration is free. Go to 560theanswer.com/SeanFest. That's 560theanswer.com/SHAUN Fest. Sponsored in part by LeavingIL.com and by Unique Wooden Flags.
Each morning, the newsmakers and the newsbreakers shaping today's conversation are heard on the AlphaWealthGroup.com answer line on Chicago's Morning Answer. When you need answers about what's happening in your world, you turn to AM 560 The Answer. And when you need answers about how to prepare for and protect your retirement, you turn to the Alpha Wealth Group, now the proud sponsor of the AM 560 Answer line. Right here on Chicago's source for news, opinion, and insight. AM 560 The Answer.
The IRS finally caught up with Louie.
I hadn't paid my taxes in 8 years. I owe the IRS a lot of money.
Louie was in deep trouble.
We're going to take your house, put a lien on your bank account, garnish your pay. They don't care. They're going to take your paycheck.
Louie found out about Optima Tax Relief, the leading tax resolution firm. A-plus rated by the Better Business Bureau, they've resolved over $3 billion for their clients.
Optima Tax, they help me. They calm me down. They make me feel comfortable, and I trust them.
Louie has a lot to be thankful for.
I don't owe the IRS anymore, and I'm able to live a comfortable life, a lot better life. It was because of Optima Tax.
For tax help you can trust, call Optima now for a free consultation. Take it from Louie.
If you owe the IRS, don't go it alone. Give Optima Tax a call. They can help you.
Call 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433.
Optima Tax Relief.
Testimonial from an actual client. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Hey, it's Sean Thompson. You know, one day it's market volatility. The next day it's conflict overseas. Price jumps, confidence drops, and suddenly retirement feels less certain. When the latest headline pushes costs higher and stokes inflation fears, it can have a ripple effect on your investments and your budget. But here's the thing. Retirement shouldn't depend on perfect timing or on the latest geopolitical noise. Tom Fortino and the Alpha Wealth Group help families right here in the Chicago area build a plan to create income you can't outlive, control taxes, minimize risk, protect your assets, and prepare an estate and legacy plan. It's their 5-pillar retirement planning. Ready to learn more? To get your complimentary retirement roadmap and a retirement analysis today, schedule a meeting with Tom Fortino and the people of Alpha Wealth Group by calling 630-864-6711. That number again, 630-864-6711, or online at alphawealthgroup.com.
Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get the parts and service you need fast from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
641 Team Hochberg Traffic Center time. Trouble in Hillside this morning. Mannheim Road is shut down between Madison and Butterfield. It's all due to a serious rollover crash with injuries at Mannheim and Washington Boulevard. We're keeping our eyes on the south side as well. Halstead, north and southbound, between 74th and 73rd, entirely shut down because of police activity in the last few minutes. All the buses along Halstead, number 8 buses, are halted as well. Accident cleanup continues on the south side. Auburn Gresham neighborhood, 87th remains shut down east and westbound near Vincennes, but that should be picked up very shortly. That's an earlier crash with major injuries. And a disabled vehicle is bottling up traffic on the right-hand shoulder westbound 8094 at Torrance. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Now a check of your AccuWeather forecast in the Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center. Plenty of sunshine today. Just a bit of wildfire smoke sprinkled in. Hazy conditions for the afternoon and a high of 82.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Sounds like in the AI generation, we have life imitating Mike Judge's Silicon Valley. Remember the episode? If you're a Silicon Valley fan, which you should be, it was a great show. Very underappreciated. Jin Yang, great character, introduces the new internet, and he just has on a whiteboard, new Reddit, new Google, new Spotify, just piracy. He's slapping a new on it.
Jin Yang, are you copying all those companies for the Chinese markets? Oh, no.
Yeah. And so what, instead of just copying companies or the intellectual piracy that we are familiar with when it comes to the Chinese Communist Party, a long-running problem, now they're in the business of intellectual piracy of our congresshumans? Digital twins? For more on this, please be joined by Maximilian Gerli, who works on special projects at the advisory firm Quince Strategy, formerly held roles in finance and tech. His piece in The Spectator, Has China Cloned Your Congressman? Maximilian Gerli, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be on.
So no more need for honeypots like Fang Fang. You can just assembly line the Eric Swalwells and send them to Capitol Hill?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because ultimately the main difference between a honeypot and kind of the reverse engineered Eric Swalwell method from tweets and video appearances would be that, politicians only put stuff online that they want you to see, read, and hear. And ultimately, if you want to replicate every intricate detail of their personality, you probably do need to have a more, say, intimate relationship with them than what you could find that's publicly available online.
Well, what is the digital twin? So what is the Chinese Communist Party attempting to do here? And this is something that was brought to public attention last week by Florida Republican Congressman Kat Cammack. But what are they trying to do and to what end?
Yeah, so Kat Cammack brought this up at the Hill Summit, and while we're unsure if it's true because she hasn't really provided us with much evidence, what we can surmise that they might be trying to do is essentially scraping all publicly available data from government officials here in the U.S. and using that data to build profiles of people's personalities, behavior, decision-making patterns, and ultimately, by doing that, they can replicate these people's personas almost digitally, and then use those personas maybe to then practice negotiating or to just try and predict how they might vote. And so that is kind of probably what they're really trying to do with all that data.
So is this like doing political gaming to try to predict the outcomes of legislative debates or general political debates in this country, specifically as it relates to policy towards the Chinese communists?
Almost certainly, and I bet they're looking into things slightly more intricately than just matters relating to China. I believe that if the Chinese were to be doing something like this, they would just be looking into everything because the more data that you can collect, the more accurately you can predict matters related to China, and then matters that also are maybe peripherally related to China, such as foreign policy in Africa.
And like, how does this tie in with the sort of the larger geopolitical gambits the Chinese communists have made, like the Belt and Road Initiative, for example?
Well, see, this is interesting. I don't know how it would directly tie into Belt and Road because Belt and Road more has to do with physical infrastructure. But where I do see this having major implications is in the intelligence space. If say, Chinese intelligence officers are able to practice on digital twins before they approach a real-life target, and they might be able to run a simulation hundreds or thousands of times, I mean, that's just incredibly valuable information that they can gain, even if they just have access to publicly available data like tweets and video appearances and radio appearances.
And so is the United States doing the same thing? I mean, in the era of AI, I mean, whatever the Chinese Communist Party can do, we can do too. So is this something that's just part of spycraft at this stage?
That remains unclear, but I would say that if there are suspicions over the Chinese doing it, then it's highly likely that we're engaged in the exact same behavior, maybe at a more advanced level.
Just speaking of Cammack, Kat Cammack, the congressman, she also said last week that there needs to be stronger vetting standards for congressional staff, suggesting that our erstwhile allies of convenience, the Qataris, and perhaps others, are trying to insinuate their assets onto onto congressional staffs. And we've seen the Chinese communists do this too, most notably in New York, where it was wasn't it a higher level? Am I remembering that correctly? In New York City, in the Adams administration, there was a higher level Chinese Communist Party asset in his office.
I believe so, although the name escapes me at the moment, as well as other improprieties relating to Turkey and that mess of an administration.
Yes. This is not, sort of the digital footprint or the digital twinning, I suppose. This does not mean that we still don't have sort of exposure of human assets that our adversaries and maybe sort of our tenuous allies like the Qataris are also using to try to infiltrate the halls of power and influence public policy.
Yeah, of course not. So, as I mentioned previously, when you're dealing with publicly available information, it's exactly that. It's only, what a politician wants you to know about them that they're going to publicly release. So individual, intelligence assets that go and infiltrate administrations in real life are extremely important even today with the rise of all this publicly available data that we can scrape, because they'll be able to more intricately know a politician, their preferences, their behaviors, and ultimately extract information from them more personally.
So, other than being cognizant of this, is there anything specifically we could do about it, even if we wanted to?
No, strictly no, apart from, publishing less data, but that would be tough because, in the United States, we have this culture of disclosure within our government, because we are a democracy. China doesn't have that same culture. And so that's the biggest risk is that Chinese politicians are generally far more secretive and reserved. We know a lot less about them as the public than we do, American politicians. And so I suppose the biggest risk for us is simply them knowing more about us and our people than we know about them and their people.
Yeah, but of course, if we started behaving like them, then we would no longer be us. We don't want to do that.
Exactly.
Either. Yeah.
Of course.
Max Garley works on special projects at the advisory firm Quinn Strategy, formerly held roles in finance and tech. His piece in The Spectator, Has China Cloned Your Congressman? Max, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too. And he joined us on the alphawealthgroup.com answer line.
Before you see it on TV, share it on Facebook, or read about it in the paper, hear it here first. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Since 2007, Folds of Honor has awarded nearly 73,000 educational scholarships, over $340 million to the children and spouses of America's fallen and disabled military heroes and first responders. This year alone, 7,700 qualified applicants didn't receive funding, not because they didn't deserve it, because resources ran out. You can change that. On Saturday, September 12th, you're invited to an exclusive VIP concert experience at a private estate in the northwest suburbs of Chicago, featuring Gary LaVox of Rascal Flatts and the Swan Brothers, benefiting Folds of Honor. This is an intimate evening with incredible live music and an even more incredible cause. Tickets are limited, and if you own a business, this is your chance to put your brand behind something that truly matters. Honor their sacrifice, educate their legacy, make lifetime memories. For tickets or business sponsorship opportunities, visit foldsconcert.com. That's foldsconcert.com. Saturday, September 12th. Don't miss it. foldsconcert.com.
Your kitchen's outdated. Your bathroom feels cramped. Every day you wait, prices go up. And you keep living in a space that doesn't work. At Forever Remodeling, one team handles everything. Design, planning, and installation, start to finish. We show you your new space in 3D before we ever break ground. No surprises. With flexible financing options, the home you want is closer than you think. Visit foreverremodeling.com. That's the number 4everremodeling.com to schedule your personalized in-home design consultation.
It's hard to deny the constant attack of negative emotions that flood us online. The fear, anxiety, worry, and confusion that come from the constant stream of news and social media can be overwhelming. There is a way to escape this never-ending cycle and find peace, hope, and joy in your daily life. Christianity.com, with a wide range of daily devotionals, biblical answers to life's toughest questions, and insightful Bible study articles from your favorite pastors and authors on current events and issues, Christianity.com provides a little heaven on earth. Go to Christianity.com now.
Foundations of Freedom, a look at America's founding principles and the leaders who shaped our nation.
During the War for Independence, General George Washington, the man we refer to today as the father of our country, led American troops through military defeat after defeat. And in the bitter winter of 1777, he wrote this somber note to a friend in Philadelphia. Quote, "You might have tracked our army from White Marsh to Valley Forge by the blood on their feet," end of quote. Many soldiers continued to march through the deep snows of Pennsylvania without shoes. Others suffered from disease, hunger, and freezing conditions. Nearly 2,000 of Washington's men died. Yet George Washington did not lose faith. Amid the hardship, loss, and uncertainty of Valley Forge, he turned to God in prayer. At a time when our nation once again faces division and uncertainty, may we follow Washington's example, kneeling humbly, praying faithfully, and asking God to guide the future of America.
And now it's time for the Cat's Corner.
America's debt problem? We are always talking about that. Well, who pays the bill? I go back to the time when the debt was $5.5 trillion. And Newt Gingrich was the speaker. And what did they do? They worked together as Americans, sat down with common sense decisions, and brought down the deficit from $5.5 trillion down to $5 trillion. Well, that is the last time the American people said $5 trillion. Since then, it has grown to $39 trillion. It has gotten out of whack. It has gotten out of control. And what is President Trump trying to do? He is trying, as a businessman, to bring it under control. He is trying to bring business back to America. He says he has commitments for $19 trillion in new manufacturing. Let's be proud and say, made in the USA. Bring jobs back to America. And that's what President Trump is doing. This is John Catsimatidis, and this is the Cat's Corner.
Foundations of Freedom, a look at America's founding principles and the leaders who shaped our nation.
During the War for Independence, General George Washington, the man we refer to today as the father of our country, led American troops through military defeat after defeat. And in the bitter winter of 1777, he wrote this somber note to a friend in Philadelphia. Quote, "You might have tracked our army from White Marsh to Valley Forge by the blood on their feet," end of quote. Many soldiers continued to march through the deep snows of Pennsylvania without shoes. Others suffered from disease, hunger, and freezing conditions. Nearly 2,000 of Washington's men died. Yet George Washington did not lose faith. Amid the hardship, loss, and uncertainty of Valley Forge, he turned to God in prayer. At a time when our nation once again faces division and uncertainty, may we follow Washington's example, kneeling humbly, praying faithfully, and asking God to guide the future of America.
Have you been watching gold and silver lately? Hard to ignore. Back in January of 2025, silver was under $30 an ounce, and now it's more than doubled. Again, not bad, right? Some experts say this bull market is just getting started. Others say it's a good time to take some money off the table. Either way, whether you're buying or selling, Fox Valley Coins in Naperville is the place to go. They stock large quantities of all the major bullion coins and bars. And here's what sets them apart. Unlike places that only pay melt value, Fox Valley Coins pays more for high-grade coins and scarcer dates. That's real money left in your pocket. They also buy scrap sterling flatware, jewelry, silver-plated items, and old proof sets. And they specialize in U.S. and foreign collector and investment coins and currency, both buying and selling. Fox Valley Coins, one light north of I-88 on Route 59 at Ferry Road in Naperville. Family owned with integrity since 1981.
Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest growing independently owned business bank, a bank where relationships still matter. Signature Bank knows your name and your story. I'm Dan Proft, and I know this because Signature Bank is my business bank.
Hi, I'm Tony Patrick, CEO of Total Wall and a client of Signature Bank. We produce high-performance materials used in exterior insulating finish systems and other stucco applications. Every growing business needs a strong team behind it. Over the years, Signature Bank has been more than a financial partner. They've shared their knowledge, offered guidance, and connected us with trusted professionals who help strengthen our business. They're a valuable extension of our team and a true partner. That's why I value my relationship with Signature Bank.
Signature Bank helps local businesses succeed. Want to learn how Signature Bank can help turn your business vision into reality? Call Signature Bank at 773-467-5600 or visit signaturebank.bank. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
It's summer. Time to get outside and enjoy the beautiful weather in a brand new scooter from Mars Medical in New Lenox. Come see and test drive their full collection of new and used power mobility devices for sale. Mars Medical carries full and travel size scooters from Pride Mobility and Golden Technologies. Inventory is moving out daily, so don't hesitate to pick out your new scooter today. And don't forget, Mars Medical also has lightweight and compact transport wheelchairs available for sale or rental use use for those day trips to the zoo or to the park. Some units weigh as little as 19 pounds. Or improve your outdoor activities with a Rollator walker. Mars Medical has over 7 models of Rollator walkers on the floor for purchase. Make this summer one to remember with help from Mars Medical on the north side of Route 30 between Cedar and Vine Road in New Lenox. Or go to marsmedicalsupply.com. Mars Medical, customer care that is out of this world.
AM 560, The Answer.
All right, coming up at 7:07, Evan Barker, writer and author of the just-released book, Nothing Left, Confessions of a Dem Operative. She cannot tolerate the DSA-dominated Dem Party, and she's going to tell us why. Interesting story. Mugged by Reality. It's now 7 o'clock on AM 560 at WIND.
It's what President Trump warned he'd do. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News, hitting Iran with another night of bombing.
You know, we got to smack them a little bit.
He also had warned that Iran would take a beating for trying to attack a base in Jordan, and U.S. Central Command says they completed a heavy wave of strikes. Fox's Peter Ducey reports from the White House.
The president has been presented an option by the head of CENTCOM to go big and escalate strikes, according to the Wall Street Journal. The idea behind Admiral Brad Cooper's high-end option is to go beyond the smaller retaliatory airstrikes that have done little to deter Tehran from threatening ships in the Strait of Hormuz and lobbing missiles at American forces in the region by sharply escalating the war.
Speaking of escalating, China may get involved, according to Reuters.
The Chinese company that is reportedly going to provide Iran with at least 400 shoulder-fired missiles over land. And these are missiles, man-pads, that are used to shoot down helicopters and jets. The same type of missile that shot down that U.S. plane earlier this year over southwestern Iran.
Fox's Trey Yingst in Tel Aviv. Iran has targeted more ships in the Strait of Hormuz, and 2 natural gas sites were hit by drones off the Egyptian coast. But oil prices are down a bit this morning. We also, later this hour, are going to get another inflation update, but it's for June, when oil and gas prices have been falling. They have recently risen back up. A vote was planned today in the Senate, and it's been postponed as 2 Republicans who fell out of favor with President Trump voiced concerns about the acting attorney general.
Republicans John Cornyn and Tom Tillis say they want more assurances about President Trump's settlement with the IRS before voting to advance Todd Blanche's nomination out of the Judiciary Committee to a full Senate confirmation vote. The president dropped a $10 billion lawsuit over leaked tax returns in exchange for a later scrap plan to compensate people claiming political prosecution and ending existing Trump family tax audits. Blanche signed off on the deal as acting attorney general.
That's Fox's Chris Foster. America's listening to Fox News. 63 degrees and sunshine. Good morning, I'm Mike Scott in the QC Kinetics newsroom, and here are the stories we're following on WIND Chicago. Former Illinois House Speaker Michael Madigan took a long-awaited step this week, asking the nation's high court to hear an appeal of his historic Illinois corruption conviction. That may keep him behind bars until he is nearly 90 years old. The move comes 3 months after a federal appeals court here in Chicago upheld Madigan's February 2025 conviction, finding that evidence exposed a concealed arrangement to engage in enormous political influence inside the Illinois General Assembly for allies. Family, friends, and former teammates gathered to mourn Tim Bankston last night, former Simeon High School basketball player and a celebrated coach at Thornton Fractional High School North, after he was found fatally shot inside of a home, according to police and relatives. Sean Wright was a Simeon teammate.
Ben Wilson, him, Kenny Allen, it's a lot of ball players up there. They all touch hands again and welcome him home.
The 60-year-old was a Southside basketball standout, led Simeon to a state title in 1984. That same year, teammate and fellow basketball player Ben Wilson was shot and killed on streets not far from the high school. A new tornado in Wheaton has been confirmed by the National Weather Service. It was on the ground for 2 minutes with peak winds of 75 miles an hour. ComEd this morning says About 90% of power should be restored to the area, but many will be likely waiting until Friday. 2 Joliet residents charged in the death of a Plainfield man found dismembered in Lake Mattoon last month will now face murder charges. A Will County grand jury has indicted Robin Turner and Jane Adams on murder and other charges. The remains of Dale Wayne Turner were discovered in that lake on June 28. There's still time to say goodbye to 2 of the most famous gorillas in the country. They're soon leaving the Brookfield Zoo. After more than a decade at the zoo, the sisters Kamba and Nora are moving on out. Officials say the western lowland gorillas are heading to another accredited zoo, part of the ongoing conservation effort for the species. Chicago sports, Cardinals walk off the Cubs 3-2 in extras, while in 12, the White Sox came back to beat the Yankees 6-5. The news is a service of the AM 560 Advantage, where membership has its privileges, and you can join today at 560theanswer.com/join. Traffic and weather coming up next on AM 560.
Alex Marlow sees the president trying to save our elections.
He showed there are massive vulnerabilities and we need a robust nationwide effort to try to fix them. And it starts with, drum roll please, the Save America Act. Let's just start with people bringing IDs to the polls. Let's start making sure people are registered citizens when they go to vote. Of course, this is logical. This is important. This is necessary.
The Alex Marlow Show. Afternoons at 3, right before Sean Thompson at 4 on AM 560. The Answer.
Well, it's official. My friends have all switched to Pure Talk because I told them they could save a bunch of money on a super reliable high-speed network with unlimited data. And because they're my friends, they trust me. As for the rest of you, well, Pure Talk understands that even though you might like me, you're not just going to take my word for it, nor should you. For that reason, and for a very limited time, Pure Talk is offering any of their plans for just $15 a month for the first 3 months, including their top-tier unlimited plan that normally sells for $65 a month. Think of it like a test drive, a super simple way to save $150 while you kick the tires on Pure Talk's blazing fast network, and a fine way to see for yourself why I switched from Big Wireless, along with a few 100,000 of my closest friends. Dial pound 250, say Mike Rowe, and be connected to Pure Talk's friendly U.S. customer service team. Again, dial pound 250, say Mike Rowe, and let the savings begin.
Tired of that outdated bath or shower but dread the cost and hassle of a lengthy remodel? Let Jacuzzi Bath Remodel come to the rescue with the perfect bathroom remodel at a price you can afford. Maybe stepping over that high bathtub feels unsafe, or you want to add a beautiful bath your whole family can enjoy. Whether it's a safer, easy entry shower complete with grab bars and a custom seat, to a beautiful spa-like family bath that's functional and stylish. With a Jacuzzi Bath Remodel, you can enjoy your personalized bath or shower installed in as little as 1 day. Right now, we're waiving all installation costs, plus offering no interest and no payments for up to 1 year. To schedule your free design consultation and quote, call now. Call 800-384-5277. That's 800-384-5277. 800-384-5277. With purchase and installation, financing through third-party lenders, subject to credit approval. No interest and no payments if paid in full within 12 months. Interest charged from purchase date if not paid in full. Not all will qualify. Call dealer for details.
Since 2007, Folds of Honor has awarded nearly 73,000 educational scholarships, over $340 million to the children and spouses of America's fallen and disabled military heroes and first responders. This year alone, 7,700 qualified applicants didn't receive funding, not because they didn't deserve it, because resources ran out. You can change that. On Saturday, September 12th, you're invited to an exclusive VIP concert experience at a private estate in the northwest suburbs of Chicago, featuring Gary LaVox of Rascal Flatts and the Swan Brothers, benefiting Folds of Honor. This is an intimate evening with incredible live music and an even more incredible cause. Tickets are limited, and if you own a business, this is your chance to put your brand behind something that truly matters. Honor their sacrifice, educate their legacy, make lifetime memories. For tickets or business sponsorship opportunities, visit foldsconcert.com. That's foldsconcert.com. Saturday, September 12th. Don't miss it. foldsconcert.com.
7:08, Team Hochberg Traffic Center time. Outbound Stevenson trouble this morning. Accident, left lane blocked. Outbound at Central. Delays on Route 53. Northbounders are jammed up from the Ike all the way to Kirchhoff in that roadwork zone. In Bellwood, Washington, east and westbound between Frederick and Butterfield entirely shut down due to an overturned vehicle and rollover crash. And that's causing big delays in Hillside as well, too. Warrenville, an accident. Ferry and Bella Vista, and in Hanover Park, Barrington and Yorkshire, reports of accidents this morning. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Now a check of your morning forecast in the Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center.
Today, expect sunny skies transitioning to clouds as wildfire smoke creates a hazy atmosphere. The high will reach 87 degrees. Tonight will be mostly cloudy with a low of 68. Tomorrow, anticipate mainly cloudy conditions with cooler temperatures. Rain showers and a thunderstorm are expected later in the afternoon with a high of 78 degrees. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
This hourly segment is brought to you by the Alpha Wealth Group, bringing the trilogy of estate, tax, and investment planning together. Visit alphawealthgroup.com for a free report.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Our next guest, Evan Barker, has written a book. We referenced an op-ed the other day that she wrote, which is sort of in part a snapshot of her book, Nothing Left, Confessions of a Democratic Operative. And it speaks to her inability to countenance what the party to which she affiliated has become in the era of identitarian-driven socialism, I guess, is the way to say it. And she's from the Midwest, Kansas City area. And she went viral back in 2024 with a TikTok video as to why she could not support Kamala Harris. And that was the beginning of a move away from her previous life as being an operative for candidates in that party. I wonder if it's candidates like Francesca Hong. She is a Wisconsin state legislator. We were talking with Scott Walker about her yesterday a bit. Likely to be the nominee for governor of the DSA/Dem party. And she has previously taken DSA planks as her platform, you know, things like abolish police. So she's being asked about them now, and she's trying to provide a more fulsome context to avoid having to defend a straightforward defund police position, which will be difficult in the state of Wisconsin. You know, one of the reasons that Ron Johnson has survived and even thrived there is because of the candidates that he's drawn, and Mandela Barnes tried to play that identitarian game with him last go around, and he got wiped out because, outside of Madison and parts of Milwaukee, cheeseheads tend to be relatively commonsensical on public safety, as most people are, regardless of which party you affiliate with. This is what the good Representative Hong had to say as she was pressed on the issue recently.
Why do you believe that the police must still exist?
Still exist? Because the reality of this moment and in the types of public safety systems that we have, I want us to be sensible and realistic, but we know now that the billions invested in the criminal legal system is not working. We are spending on incarcerating an individual more than tuition for UW-Madison. That, this is about making sure that local law enforcement, is working with community that we are taking resources from the state and investing in things like public education, victim services, out of school programs for our kids to go and have a great, be able to be themselves. These are things that data and facts have shown that prevent crime. Again, if you want to be tough on crime, you better be tough on causes.
Do you still long-term want to abolish police, but ultimately?
I believe that we have to be serious about public safety, and I'm going to be a governor that is more serious than anyone else in making sure that we are building systems of care, that we are focusing on lowering crime, getting guns off of our street, and making sure that folks who are incarcerated, which 90% of those folks will be going back to community, that we're lowering recidivism rate. And it's appalling to me that for folks who are working within our prisons, they have some of the highest suicide rates of any job and occupation. So this system is not working. If we want to be serious, we better be putting these billions into the things that we know prevent crime.
Mm-hmm. If you're asked the question, is your long-term plan to abolish police, and your answer is that no, of course not, and then you go on to provide additional details as you want to, it's more than about this, it's more than about police and incarceration, it's about other matters too, fine. But when you dodge the opportunity to say, no, of course not, I'm not interested in abolishing police, or I've evolved, whatever you need to do to move off of that untenable position, when you don't do that, that's sort of a tell. Also, I found this out about Miss Hong. She ran a ramen shop with her husband. She wanted to give raises to all the workers so they would have a quote-unquote sustainable wage. At least she's trying to, live her values, impose the same wages on her business that she would impose on other businesses by fiat. She wanted to do that even when the business was financially unable to sustain such wages. So instead, they shut down the business and fired everyone, which is also what happens to other people in the real world, but they're not as enthusiastic about it. Let's talk to Evan Barker, writer, author of the book Nothing Left, Confessions of a Democratic Operative. Evan, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
A pleasure to have you. And so is Francesca Hong the kind of candidate that has moved you to rethinking your affiliations?
She is exactly the type of candidate who's made me to completely reevaluate the people that I wanted to work with, and actually know some of the people behind her campaign currently. I helped train them to learn how to fundraise, so it's not entirely surprising. But yeah, she definitely comes out of the world that I used to work with. And I think what you said earlier in the segment, you called it identitarian socialism. I think that is the perfect way to put it. I wouldn't even necessarily call them like real socialists in many ways, because what I see them focus on a lot isn't actually economic at all. It is more just about these cultural politics, like defunding the police and abolishing ICE and Green New Deal. And, it's still so hard for me to understand why, after 2024, after Donald Trump won the election, on the economy, really, and immigration, and public safety too, actually, that they are just still not understanding that what people are thinking about in their day-to-day lives, what normal, ordinary Americans are thinking about, are not defunding the police or not abolishing ICE, but just, how to pay the rent, how to pay for groceries, how to pay for gas, things like that. And I don't see how people like Hong or Abdul El-Sayed running in Michigan nearby are going to be able to build a big enough coalition to win these general elections. I think that these candidates are putting Democrats in real danger to be able to win places like the Rust Belt and to, keep the blue wall, which has proved critical for them in previous elections.
Yeah, Abdul El-Sayed made some news this week by suggesting, metaphorically, of course, only that John Fetterman's head should be put on a spike as a warning to others who would stray from leftist orthodoxy, which is, a particularly inopportune characterization for a self-avowed Muslim, anti-Zionist, some like me might say anti-Semite, a particularly unfortunate metaphor to use.
I didn't hear that he said that. That's very disappointing. You know, I worked for Abdul al-Sayed too. I did not write about him in the book when I was writing about the book. When I was writing the book last year, he wasn't as much in the national conversation at that point in time. I did work with him. He was very kind to me personally, when we worked together. But ultimately, I just think that he has too many views that are out of step. And like Francesca, is unable to completely distance himself from these super unpopular policies that I thought had been sort of laid to rest in the 2024 election. You know, I live in San Francisco now, or not in San Francisco directly, but in the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm originally from the Heartland. I'm originally from Kansas City. Mm-hmm. And, in San Francisco, we rebuked these policies. We were kind of like ground zero for these experiments of, rolling back public safety laws. And the voters there, even though they're very liberal, right, in general, they elected a moderate mayor who said that he would, make sure that the police had every resource that they needed, that would allow police to actually pursue crime again. There was a law for a while in California where, like, basically if there was some sort of theft or whatever, like, police weren't even allowed to pursue it, which, obviously created a climate and an environment where people were just taking advantage of that. They weren't prosecuting minors. And, I lived in San Francisco during these times and, with a young son, with a toddler, and after working in the criminal justice reform movement too, it really, really woke me up. I mean, I was already disillusioned at this point, but it woke me up even more to the realities on the ground of these types of policies. And when I would talk to my former peers in progressive politics about it, even though I was living there, they would just tell me that it wasn't true, even though I was actually there. They would say, like, oh, that's just a right-wing conspiracy created by Fox News. And I think many of them must actually still hold that belief. And it's kind of crazy to me.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting you bring up San Francisco because it really is an outlier. The last place you might think would be an outlier. So Lurie replaces London Breed. The district attorney Bowden gets recalled on these issues of public safety that you mentioned. So San Francisco moved more towards the middle, if you will. And yet, and every other big city is going, just about every other big city is going full Brandon Johnson or Zoran Mamdani. What happened in San Francisco that's not happening in L.A., Chicago, New York, other cities? I mean, like, why? Why?
It got really bad there. It really did. I think after COVID, and then with all of these new policies enacted. I mean, I'm sure you guys read about it on the news and stuff.
Oh, sure.
At times it felt like you were in like a war zone or like a third world country, depending on what neighborhood you were in. And I think, the people there, especially the Asian community in San Francisco, really, I have to give them credit for being the ones that are common sense and were willing to fight back on these policies. And I think people just got so sick of it. And we replaced the DA there. We got rid of Chesa Boudin. We got a new mayor. And I think people just got so fed up. I mean, I remember when I lived there, I had a 1-year-old son at that time, and I would take him to the playground. There'd be homeless people sleeping in the park. We'd go to CVS. Everything would be locked up. There were carjackings nearby. There were nannies that were just walking down the street with little babies in their strollers, and they were getting mugged, with by teenagers with guns, because these teens knew that they weren't going to be prosecuted. And so it was kind of like an open free-for-all. And luckily that, I think it was the Asian community and then the working class Latinos and the tech community kind of coming together and voting some of these policies out. Ironically, the white progressives there, I think those neighborhoods actually still voted for people like Chesa Boudin and wanted them to remain in office. So, we wised up, and I think the rest of the country is going to have to go through harder times, maybe, unfortunately, to do the same thing.
Yeah, it got bad enough, and that's clearly not the case in the minds of the electorates in other cities, I suppose. But, I look at, I don't know if you look at it this way, but I sort of look at everything as a continuum, and I understand, you sort of cut your teeth in the Obama era politically. And I wonder if you think that we were on, and the left was on this trajectory dating back for some time now, that sort of increased in pace during Obama, and then now in the era of AOC, if you will, it has sort of gone up at a 45-degree angle. Or if this is just something that's episodic, it's not a continuum, it's just episodic, and for some reason, maybe you could explain, the DSA is ascendant now in a way they weren't even a cycle or two ago.
I can definitely explain that for you guys. And I write about this in my book, too, because I was there. I was there at the very beginnings of this DSA movement, actually. I started working in progressive politics in 2018. I was actually there the day that Bernie Sanders and AOC first ever even met each other. People don't realize this. The first time they ever met was in Kansas. 1 month after AOC's upset with Joe Crowley. And so I think, if I think back to Obama's election, that's when I first really got activated in Democratic politics. And that's because I was born with a pre-existing health condition and, he promised me health care. And if I think to that campaign in 2008, he really ran a kind of colorblind, more populist-focused campaign, I think, in 2008. And then in the next election, and then especially, I think it got ramped up when Hillary Clinton ran against Bernie Sanders. She really turned to identity politics to try to undo him as her opponent. And then when AOC came along and the squad came along, Rashida Tlaib, Ayanna Pressley, all of the people that came with AOC, I think that they really, really leaned into this. And I almost view it as a co-opting. A lot of people say that AOC was co-opted by the Democratic Party. But I think the reality is that the Democratic Party has actually been co-opted by AOC. And I think that as the base has grown more radicalized in response to Donald Trump, they've leaned more into the policies and the points of view of the far left. And I think the reason that you're seeing them supercharged right now is because, when I started with them a decade ago, they were still very new. Most of the people that were involved in AOC's rise and the squad's rise, they were very young. They didn't have much experience besides Bernie Sanders' first campaign. They didn't know how to use money in politics. They didn't even believe in money in politics. They didn't know how to fundraise. And so now they've had a decade to learn from their mistakes. They know how to professionally fundraise. They know how to do independent expenditures. DSA candidates that just won and this wave in New York and in Colorado, they had real money behind them. Daria-Liza Chevalier, she had a $500,000 super PAC that was started by this group called American Priorities, which was founded by a woman who worked at Justice Democrats, who I knew from my days in progressive fundraising. So they have a real infrastructure, and part of it is that the establishment iced them after AOC's won. And I write about this all in my book, Nothing Left. And And so they really, because they were blacklisted and they were iced out, they had to create their own parallel power structure that ran parallel to the DNC, and they recruited their own donors. Some of them are billionaire donors. They've got real money behind them. And I think that is the difference between now and 10 years ago and why they're coming back so much stronger and even more further to the left, actually.
But in addition to resources, you still have to have appeal. And so what is it that is animating so many to move in the DSA direction and vote for DSA candidates? I mean, part of it seems to me like one of the litmus tests is support for Islamism. And I wonder if that's a separator between the DSA candidates and the Chuck Schumers of the world, who's certainly not a centrist, but isn't an Islamist either.
So the litmus test change; those are kind of episodic, right? They change cycle to cycle. I think in 2018 it was more, it was more abolish ICE, which it kind of still is, and Medicare for all and Green New Deal, right? And now it's like abolish ICE and disavowing Israel. And so I think what the progressives do is they pick these signifiers that differentiate them from the mainstream of the party. And then they use those to signify to the public, okay, this is how we're different from other Democrats, and so this is why you should vote for us. And they're really, really skilled at taking these signifiers and then pushing them into the national conversation. And to answer your question about why why these voters are so willing to vote for these people and why the base seems to have gotten more radical, I think the answer is because the base, the average Democratic voter, even if they're not as far to the left as Abdul El-Sayed or Francesca Hong, they are rightfully frustrated. I have to be fair here. They are rightfully frustrated at the Democratic establishment, at people like Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and Kamala Harris for losing now so many times to Donald Trump. And the reason that the establishment is lost is because they're empty. While the progressives actually do believe in things, I think it's the wrong things, the establishment doesn't really believe in anything. And I think they've lost so much now that the average Democratic voter is so fed up with them that they're looking for alternatives. And unfortunately, the only built-in alternative is the Zohran Mamdani wing of the party. And so that's why you're seeing the sharp leftward turn.
Do you think that the DSA is sort of at its peak now, and unless there is real success in the midterms, it will subside? Or we're looking at a DSA that is going to be the dominant element in the party, your former party, or your current party, I don't know, but in the Democrat Party with an eye towards 2028, and it's not going to be some candidate from central casting that the establishment wants like Gavin Newsom. It's much more likely to be somebody like AOC as the presidential nominee.
I think that the DSA is definitely ascendant, and I write about this in my book, Nothing Left too. Progressives know that, and they talk about this openly behind the scenes, but they know that the way to make their mark on presidential elections is by doing really well during midterms. They call it tone setting. So if they're able to rack up enough wins in the midterms and get enough attention and enough spotlight, which is exactly what they're doing right now, and that's what they did with AOC and Rashida and Ilhan in 2018 too, but they're doing it even in a bigger way, actually, this cycle, that they can then use that energy and galvanize the base of the party against those presidential candidates. This is the part of the reason that you saw really more like mainstream Democrats like Pete Buttigieg and Kamala Harris in 2020 running on all of their policies in the presidential primary. And so I think their plan is to win as many people, or, to win as many seats as they can right now. And then, in partnership with Zohran and AOC and Bernie and all of the new squad members, to basically take their policies and then force each candidate, doesn't matter who they are, to the left in the presidential primary in 2028, guaranteeing that whoever wins will be forced to focus on their policies, which is kind of what happened with Joe Biden. That's why, he ran as a moderate, but once he got in, he went far to the left because he had to appease the base.
Do you think the Republican Party is responding effectively to this ascendant DSA, or is it playing largely into the DSA's hands and better watch out because the DSA can win and their candidates can win general elections?
I do worry that the Republican Party isn't focused enough on domestic matters and the economy and the affordability crisis, because that is very, very real. And I worry that maybe, some swing voters, in upcoming elections feel like, their economic position hasn't improved enough. And so they end up going to these more radical alternatives. So I am thinking about that a lot. I also think that the mainstream Democratic Party has not responded to these candidates ferociously enough either. I think only 13 moderate Democrats have come out recently to say that they're willing to fight the DSA. And I think part of it is because they're terrified of getting primaried and they know the direction that their base is going in. And on top of that, a lot of people don't realize this, but behind the scenes, the staffers that often even work for these more establishment centrist Democrats, they themselves are radicalized because they're younger and they end up sympathizing more with people like Zohran. And so they're telling the politicians behind the scenes, hey, don't criticize Zohran. Don't come out against the DSA. We don't want to alienate young people. We don't want to alienate these voters. And so it's kind of like the party is really captured from all sides.
Yes. Appeasement is a poor strategy. Evan Barker, writer and author of the just-released book, Nothing Left, Confessions of a Democratic Operative. Again, Nothing Left is the book. Evan Barker, the author. Evan, thanks so much for joining us. Really interesting. Good to talk to you.
Thank you. Have a great morning.
You too. And she joined us in the alphawealthgroup.com answer line.
Hear about the big stories of the day, then talk about them right here on Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer. It's news, opinion, and insight at the speed of your life. Streaming at 560theanswer.com on the AM 560 mobile app, or tell your smart speaker to play The Answer Chicago.
Sunshine and 66 degrees in the QC Kinetics newsroom. Good morning. I'm Mike Scott. Family and friends and former teammates gathered last night to mourn Tim Bankston, former Simeon High School basketball player and celebrated coach at Thornton Fractional North High School. He was found fatally shot inside of a home, according to police and relatives, like his brother Charles.
So it's like everything I can never imagine in my life. I didn't cry like this when my mom and dad died. But the love that I have for him, it'll be everlasting.
Police have not announced any arrest in that case. You may be tempted this morning to make some big changes to your retirement accounts after yesterday's free fall on Wall Street. Reporter Daria Albinger tells us most experts would tell you to think again.
The market tanked on Wednesday and your 401k took a hit. What do you do now? Well, nothing. The experts at U2 Finance say selling stocks in a panic can turn a paper loss into a real one. If you have to do something, check your mix. Look at your portfolio to see if your assets match your goals. They also remind us that investing in stocks is usually a long-term strategy, and history shows over time the markets have an upward trajectory. In New York, I'm Daria Albinger.
Milwaukee Public Schools have set up temporary residence in a Wrigleyville hotel, seeking to hire 200 teachers and 150 more full-time aides, targeting laid-off Chicago public school workers.
We had a few questions about stability. Are you going to lay me off every year? And we don't have that process at Milwaukee Public Schools. We provide teachers contracts, and those contracts are automatically renewed every February for the next year.
Chicago sports, Cardinals beat the Cubs 3-2, while the White Sox walk off the Yankees 6-5. The news, the service of the AM 560 Advantage, where membership has its privileges. And you can join today. 560theanswer.com/join. Traffic and weather coming up next on AM 560.
Each morning, the newsmakers and the newsbreakers shaping today's conversation are heard on the AlphaWealthGroup.com answer line on Chicago's Morning Answer. When you need answers about what's happening in your world, you turn to AM 560 The Answer. And when you need answers about how to prepare for and protect your retirement, you turn to the Alpha Wealth Group, now the proud sponsor of the AM 560 answer line, right here on Chicago's source for news, opinion, and insight. AM 560 The Answer.
Progressive Insurance. Progressive can protect your home, auto, boat, motorcycle, ATV, RV, and more. In short, a lot of things. Bundle today at Progressive.com.
Team Hochberg Traffic Center time. Two major expressway problem spots. Eisenhower inbound at 25th. Disabled vehicle in a left lane. Accident on the Stevenson left lane block outbound at Central. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Now a check of your AccuWeather forecast in the Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center. Plenty of sunshine today and a high of 82.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. So President Trump telling Trey Yingst, Fox News yesterday that we're going to beat the effing blank out of the Iranians after their attempted strike at a U.S. air base in Jordan. And so the strikes have continued after a pause. But some distressing news. The Telegraph across the pond reporting that the Chinese communists are providing Iran with 400 rocket launchers to continue to aid their efforts to sustain retaliatory strikes against America and our Gulf state Israel, obviously, and our Gulf state allies. For more on all of this, the state of play, and how she thinks it's going, please be joined, as always, by KT McFarland, former First Deputy National Security Advisor to President Trump, author of Revolution, Trump, Washington, and We the People. KT, thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
So what about that news out of Beijing that the Chinese communists are not standing down as President Trump had hoped after his meeting several weeks back with Xi?
Well, President Trump was asked about this yesterday in the Oval Office at a press briefing, and he said that he did not think the Chinese were doing it. It's a report out of Reuters, not confirmed by anybody. And he said he would be surprised if China was doing it, because Xi Jinping personally told him that they would not get involved to that level. If they are doing it, it's an escalation on China's part. We know they're probably giving them intelligence. They're probably still trying to figure out a way to buy Iranian oil, but they're not giving Iran weapons at this point. And if they do, that's a significant escalation on China's part. And as President Trump said, he's meeting with the Chinese leader in September, so I guess they'll have a lot to talk about.
Well, I mean, if they did, I mean, is there does that inform our strategy or immediate tactics in a material way?
No, I don't think so. Everybody's frustrated because we have ceasefire and then they resume fighting. It just seems like it's going on forever, like a slow drip. But if you take a step back and see, well, what's really happening? Every time the price of oil goes to about $100 a barrel, we have a ceasefire. And then it goes down to about $80 a barrel. And then Iran breaks a ceasefire, something goes wrong, and then the price climbs back up to $100 a barrel while we're fighting. And then it goes back to 80 to 100, 180, back and forth. And at the same time, remember, that's not really hurting. It's not doing any more damage to our economy or any higher gasoline prices in the U.S. But what it is doing is hurting Iran economically, because ceasefire, no ceasefire, that blockade is still in effect. So no ships are going in and out of Iranian ports, number one. Number two, in this period of time of the back and forth, the Gulf Arabs have joined with us to the point where Saudi Arabia worked with the United States to attack Iranian-sponsored forces in Iraq. So we've got a whole realignment of the Middle East where the Gulf Arabs, who historically sit on the sidelines, because there's always a war in the Middle East, right? But the Gulf Arabs, Saudi Arabia, and others, they sit on the sidelines. They're not on the sidelines now. They've joined with us. And then the third thing that's really changed is that as a result of this war, a lot of the countries who normally buy Middle East oil are saying, enough already. This is too dangerous. Whether it's Iranian oil or anybody else's oil from the Middle East, they're buying American. So our crude oil exports have gone up 30% in the last couple of weeks, months as this war has begun. So the long-range hit to Iran is an economic one, and I think that the best solution we could have to this is like a slow-rolling coup, where the Iranian guys in power, the IRGC, they have no money coming in, so the other people in Iran, the ones who want to make a deal with us, get more and more credibility as time goes on.
You know, it's interesting. What I hear you saying is something that Walter Russell Mead sort of intimated in a recent piece, which is not necessarily a customary source for optimism, but with respect to Trump policy. But he basically...
That's a very fair assessment. They're not winning the war. I mean, they have no military capabilities left. They can fire a few missiles here or there. It causes a little problem. But it's just not. They're not resuming combat operations. They're no longer really controlling the Strait. And every month that passes, their ability to use the Strait of Hormuz as a global blackmail racket goes down because countries are going to buy American or they're going to buy from pipelines. So Iran is losing. They're just not losing dramatically and on the front page of the New York Times, shall we say.
And quickly before I let you go, I know you got to go, but the capacity to extend this for as long as it needs to be extended for this slow bleed, this is being discussed a lot. We're down to about a third, reportedly, of the Patriot missiles we had prior to the start of hostilities. And, about the same proportionally, maybe half of the terminal high altitude air defense interceptors remaining. Is that a real concern, or are we replenishing at a pace that will allow for us to sustain?
I'm never worried about the United States' ability to rapidly produce weapon systems. We just need to have funding from Congress, and we can do it. Look, I mean, we've always done it in World War II. We can rapidly ramp up. And then secondly, with regard specifically to the Patriots and THAAD missile defense systems, we've already sold a lot of those to countries in the Middle East, so we can use their supplies. And then third, we've now licensed Ukraine, interestingly, to manufacture Patriot missiles as well. So I'm not running around with my hair on fire over this.
Katie McFarland, former First Deputy NSA to President Trump, author of the bestseller Revolution, Trump, Washington, and We the People. Katie, thank you for your insights as always. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care. And she joined us on the alphawealthgroup.com answer line.
It's news, opinion, insight. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Mike Lindell and the MyPillow employees want to thank you for your great support this past year. They want to make 2026 the best year ever. So to thank you, they are giving you free shipping on your entire order and wholesale pricing. So they are bringing back the mega sale. For example, the classic MyPillows, regularly $49.98, now only $14.98. Turn any mattress into the best mattress ever with the Made in the USA MyPillow My Mattress Topper and save up to $100. Get a set of MyPillow Giza Dream Sheets for as low as $29.98 or the 6-pack towel set for only $34.98. To get the best specials ever, go to MyPillow.com and use promo code LIBERTY or call 800-489-0201 and use promo code LIBERTY. These offers won't last long, so call 800-489-0201 or go to MyPillow.com and use promo code LIBERTY. Order now and your entire order ships absolutely free.
Veterans and active duty service members, when your call to service ends, your mission doesn't have to. Go from GI to IT in just a few months at My Computer Career. Prepare for a high-demand career in cybersecurity, protecting people, systems, and institutions from real cyber threats. Cyber warriors are needed now. Will you answer the call? Go to mycomputercareer.edu/CWP to learn more. That's mycomputercareer.edu/CWP, an elite CompTIA certification partner. VA education benefits are available to those who qualify.
So Karen and Michael Collins were in their 20s. They were newly married, and Michael found out he had cancer.
Stage 4, they're members of Medi-Share, and Medi-Share came through for them, not just financially.
But they called and they said, hey, we know you're going through treatment. We just wanted to call and pray for you. And it rocked my world.
Medi-Share was a blessing to us because they just made it so easy.
Call now, and you'll see why so many Christians have made the switch to Medi-Share. Here's the number, 833-34-BIBLE. That's 833-34-BIBLE.
We work a lifetime to build a legacy for our families, but the most enduring gift you can give them is the peace of mind you provide when they need it most. When you pre-plan your arrangements at Catholic Cemeteries of Chicago, you replace the weight of uncertainty with the gift of clarity. Secure today's costs and protect your family from making emotional and financial decisions at the time of need. It's a final act of love they'll never forget. Visit CatholicCemeteryChicago.org or call 708-236-5400.
Concerned about your retirement accounts or bank savings? Tired of stock market turbulence? Or simply curious about diversifying with precious metals? Tune into The Gold Show on AM 560, The Answer. Learn how gold and silver can help protect your financial future. Discover insights, strategies, and opportunities designed to help you make smarter decisions and guide you to more confident investing. Don't miss The Gold Show this Saturday morning at 11 on AM 560, The Answer.
Foundations of Freedom, a look at America's founding principles and the leaders who shaped our nation.
During the War for Independence, General George Washington, the man we refer to today as the father of our country, led American troops through military defeat after defeat. And in the bitter winter of 1777, he wrote this somber note to a friend in Philadelphia. Quote, "You might have tracked our army from White Marsh to Valley Forge by the blood on their feet," end of quote. Many soldiers continued to march through the deep snows of Pennsylvania without shoes. Others suffered from disease, hunger, and freezing conditions. Nearly 2,000 of Washington's men died. Yet George Washington did not lose faith. Amid the hardship, loss, and uncertainty of Valley Forge, he turned to God in prayer. At a time when our nation once again faces division and uncertainty, may we follow Washington's example, kneeling humbly, praying faithfully, and asking God to guide the future of America.
Hi, it's Amy Jacobson, and last year I hired Level 10 Coatings to give my garage floor a total makeover, and I am loving it. It still looks great, shiny, and clean. Level 10 Coatings. Now, you've got to call these guys if your garage floor is cracked, stained, still covered in salt. Don't live like that. Get it done now so you can enjoy it this summer. Level 10 Coatings. They're fast, reliable, and highly professional. Guess what? I went to work. When I came home, it was done. A shiny, new, gleaming garage floor. A quick, easy fix. And it's guaranteed never to chip or peel. Why? It's not an epoxy job. It's better. Level 10 uses polyurea, which is much better than epoxy. So schedule your free quote today and mention me, Amy, to receive $500 off. Visit level10coatings.com. That's level, the number 10, coatings.com, or call 855-510-2628. Staff are local and ready to answer questions. Level 10 Coatings, your premier concrete coating experts.
Welcome back to Ask Hassleus. I'm Weston. What's your question?
This is Captain Baker from the Sheriff's Office.
Hello, officer.
We have a report of missing employees at Hassleus Mattress.
That's right.
You're confessing?
Yes, I'm confessing that Hassleus Mattress showrooms are employee-free.
Come again?
Shop for Beautyrest and Sealy Posturepedic without commission-crazy salespeople breathing down your neck.
Sounds suspicious.
That's how we keep our prices way low.
How low?
Others sell a Beauty Sleep by Beautyrest Queen Elm Cove A mattress for $1,599. But Hassleus has it for just $794. Plus, similar savings on Sealy Posturepedic and more.
That's criminally low.
And through Monday, trade in your old mattress and take $248 off a queen and $348 off a king.
You wouldn't lie to a cop, would you?
Free next day delivery, too.
Dispatch, I need a police escort for a Hassleus Mattress delivery truck to my house.
Open 9 to 9. Find an employee-free showroom near you or shop online at hassleus.com.
Are you turning 65 and thinking about Medicare? Or are you over 65 and haven't enrolled yet because you still have coverage at work? Either way, Medicare done correctly will be the best health insurance you will ever have. Imagine having an annual deductible of only $283. There are only two good things about aging, wisdom and Medicare. But to navigate the Medicare maze properly, you need a mentor. Best part? My guidance costs you nothing. Call me. I can help.
If you're tired of calling a bureaucrat at an 800 number to help you navigate Medicare, then you need a local expert on your side, your own health insurance mentor. See Stephen Tucker from healthinsurancementors.com is someone I know and trust. He's a 30-year licensed broker who's been educating our listeners for more than a decade. Steve, how can our listeners get in touch with you?
Thanks, Dan. They can visit healthinsurancementors.com or call me directly at 630-674-1551. That's 630-674-1551.
Insurance came out about the roof, offered us $15,000. I was thrilled.
I know it seems like a lot, but I'm not sure that number is that generous. Insurance is usually going to lowball you.
I mean, I already found 2 companies who could replace it for that.
Sure, contractors will make it fit that budget, but they're cutting corners to make it work.
How's that?
Cheap materials, lower grade shingles with a poor warranty, reusing old flashing, cheap underlayment.
How would I even know?
You wouldn't. That's exactly why I'd call New Edge Improvement. They'll go through your insurance quote line by line, catch what's being cut, and fight to get you covered. You have a beautiful home, and New Edge Improvement will do a quality install and help you get the roof you're owed. One that matches the quality of what you had.
Thanks. I'll give New Edge Improvement a call.
New Edge Improvement. Visit them today at newedgeimprovement.com. Again, that's newedgeimprovement.com and tell them AM 560 sent you.
Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest growing independently owned business bank, a bank where relationships still matter. Signature Bank knows your name and your story. I'm Dan Proft, and I know this because Signature Bank is my business bank.
Hi, I'm Phil Silverman, CFO of Chicago Atlantic and a client of Signature. We provide capital solutions in markets where risk is often fundamentally mispriced and traditional financing can be limited. At Chicago Atlantic, success depends on experience, responsiveness, attention to detail, and an entrepreneurial mindset. That's exactly what we found with Signature. Their team understands how we operate, supports our growth, and delivers the kind of personal service that's increasingly rare in banking today. The right banking relationship should feel like a true partnership, and that's exactly why we bank with Signature.
Signature Bank helps local businesses succeed. Want to learn how Signature Bank can help turn your business vision into reality? Call Signature Bank at 773-467-5600 or visit signaturebank.bank. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
AM 560, The Answer.
I am a real American. Fight for the rights of every man. I am a real American. Fight for what's right. Fight for your life.
Yeah, Dan Proft here. Another installment of Real Americans, people that are not household names but have been making America great for 250 years, and those with a Chicagoland connection. Stories that should be told, and we'll continue to take these stories and tell them. Just email me, dan@danproft.com, if you want to do what Mike Stengel did and nominate, say, your Uncle Ed. Not nominate, it's just tell his story so that I can tell this story in pertinent part and encourage others as well. You know, what we extol, we beget, so we want to beget more real Americans like Ed Stengel. The bullet points. Son of Austrian immigrants, sent home from school because he couldn't speak English, only German. His parents learned to read and write English in order to get Ed into school. Ed enlisted in the Navy in 1943 at the age of 18. He was a first loader on the No. 2 gun on the USS Mount McKinley. He witnessed the first kamikaze attack. 2 ships in his convoy went down under that attack. There was only 1 survivor out of those 2 sunken ships. 500 soldiers died within 5 minutes. Ed caught spinal meningitis soon after the attack. He almost died, lost all his hair. When healthy, he was put back into active duty on the ship. His gun misfired and exploded in his face. Ed has a metal plate from the top of his head to his left eye. He was again put back into active duty, remained in the Navy Reserves until after World War II. Ed didn't take pay. He opted to receive war bonds because he didn't think he would survive the war. Upon returning home, he cashed in the bonds to buy a car that would drive his parents from Chicago to Sawyer, Michigan, where he paid for their new farmhouse to be built, I should say. He drove his parents to and from Sawyer as they did not know how to drive. Ed was later drafted in the Korean War. He sailed in a submarine. During a submarine exercise, the munitions batteries exploded, which nearly took one of his legs. By the way, I should mention his nickname is El Gato, Ed Stengel. El Gato, 9 lives. The military awarded Ed 12 medals and 5 Bronze Stars. With just a high school diploma, he joined the Elevator Union, was a foreman on the Sears Tower and Prudential Building Constructions. Later, he was voted a business agent. He retired and moved to Armstrong, Missouri, where he was elected sheriff and later mayor. His wife passed away from cancer. He moved back to Chicago. Ed married his second wife at the age of 74 and later cared for her when she was struggling with Parkinson's and dementia. His second wife passed when he was 90. The day he passed, Ed met me and my dad for lunch at a Chinese restaurant. He talked about his plans to sell Tootsie Rolls in front of Walmart for the Knights of Columbus in the upcoming days, in his early 90s. So great. He was a Grand Knight, the council's chief executive officer, Knights of Columbus. His fortune cookie read, "Go take a rest, you deserve it," at the Chinese restaurant they were at. "Go take a rest, you deserve it." Ed joked, "Yeah, at McGann Funeral Home." He died that night at the age of 92 years old. And as I said, friends, coworkers, and family referred to Ed El Delgado because they believed he had 9 lives. And all of them were well-lived, I would have to say. Ed Stengel, courtesy of his nephew, Mike Stengel. And again, you have someone whose story we should know, their contributions we should know. Just email me directly, dan@danproft.com. We're enjoying telling the stories, getting great feedback, and so we appreciate that, and I hope families appreciate hearing them. Coming up at 8:08, our latest installment of Sports and Politics. The WNBA. I don't know how Mike Scott follows the WNBA. I really don't. Controversy with Sophie Cunningham in Seattle with the Seattle Shrews or whatever the WNBA team name is up there. We'll discuss 8:08. It's now 8 o'clock on AM 560 WIND Chicago.
Iran targets American troops in Jordan again. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. But like the last time, the missiles launched were shot down. The U.S. retaliated last night for that first attack into the U.S. base.
President Trump told Fox News yesterday that Iran was going to get a beating. U.S. Central Command said dozens of targets belonging to Iran's Revolutionary Guard were hit in an operation lasting over 2 hours. Military command centers, missile and drone facilities, and coastal surveillance and defense sites. This week has seen the conflict expand with the first publicly announced joint US-Saudi strikes targeting Iranian proxies in Iraq.
Fox's Jonathan Savage, and as President Trump considers an even more intense round of bombing, Reuters reports China could get involved, providing Iran with hundreds of shoulder-fired air defense missiles that could target Americans like the fighter jets shot down in Iran earlier this year. The president reacted saying this about China's leader.
That would be surprising. He told me very strongly he wouldn't partake. And he knows I'd be quite disappointed.
It is sentencing day in Georgia for a father 2 days after his school shooter's son got life in prison.
Colin Gray was found guilty of murder and manslaughter charges in March for buying his son Colt the AR-15 style rifle the 14-year-old ended up using to fatally shoot 4 people at Appalachian High School in 2024. Prosecutors say the father also left the gun unsecured in their house despite warnings that the teen was a danger to others.
Fox's Kristen Goodwin. We just got updates to the economy showing an unexpected slowdown in GDP growth. 1.5% in the second quarter, down from 2.1 in the first 3 months of the year. We also got an inflation report, and like earlier ones, the PCE index shows a slight price decline in June.
Month over month, we saw a decline of 0.1%. Year over year, we gained 3.7%.
Fox Business Network Cheryl Casoni, that June decline was expected, but inflation may be back up this month as oil and gas got pricier the last few weeks with resumed U.S. and Iran fighting. America's listening to Fox News.
66 degrees and sunshine. I'm Mike Scott in the QC Kinetics newsroom, and here are the stories we're following on WIND Chicago. Chicago Sun-Times reporting a key member of the Chicago Police Oversight Body is urging the City Council to postpone the search for a permanent replacement for retired police superintendent Larry Snelling until after the mayoral election. Anthony Driver made his opinion known in a letter to city council members yesterday. Former Illinois House Speaker Michael Madigan is taking the long-awaited step of asking the nation's high court to hear his appeal of his historic corruption conviction. The move comes 3 months after a federal appeals court in Chicago upheld Madigan's sentence. Throughout the Chicago area, storm cleanup continues. The National Weather Service now confirming 5 tornadoes touched down from storms on Monday, including a new tornado confirmed in Wheaton, starting just south of Wheaton College. And 2 Joliet residents are charged in the death of a Plainfield man found dismembered in Lake Mattoon last month. Those 2 residents now face murder charges after a Will County grand jury held up indictments on Robin Turner and James Adams on murder and other charges. The remains of Dale Wayne Turner were discovered in a lake on June 28. Chicago sports. Bears continue day 2 of workouts today at Hallis Hall. Cardinals walk off the Cubs 3-2, while the White Sox beat the Yankees 6-5. The news, a service of Fox Valley Coins. No waiting, no problems. No charge for in-store verbal appraisals. Bring your gold or silver in today. FoxValleyCoins.com. Time for the AM 560 Business Beat, a service of Signature Bank.
I'm Stuart Varney, and this is the Fox Business Report.
Stock futures are showing signs of the market recovering, though interest rates on U.S. Treasuries are higher after the Federal Reserve left interest rates unchanged for a 7th month. This morning, the Bank of England left interest rates unchanged there. Crude oil prices are higher after the U.S. launched retaliatory strikes against Iran. Brent crude at $89 a barrel, West Texas Intermediate at $83. Investors were pleased with Microsoft's upbeat earnings after the Wall Street close yesterday, but they wanted more explanation from Meta Platforms on its massive spending on artificial intelligence. Both Amazon and Apple report earnings after the Wall Street close today. Today's sandwich chain Jersey Mike's is expected to go public on the New York Stock Exchange. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Jenny Cosola. Invested in you.
Sean Fest returns on August 28th at the Westin Chicago Northwest in Itasca. Be a part of a live, on-location broadcast of The Sean Thompson Show, including a performance of the national anthem, followed by live music, food, drinks, and an opportunity to meet Sean Thompson. Registration is free. Go to 560theanswer.com/SeanFest. That's 560theanswer.com/SHAUN Fest. Sponsored in part by Virago and by State Farm Insurance Agent Anthony DeGrotto. Don't miss In Grace with Pastor Jim Scudder Jr., now heard on Sunday mornings at 7:30. Tune in and find hope as Jim Scudder explores God's Word and His world each Sunday morning right here on AM 560, The Answer.
The Stephanie Trussell Show speaks to the heart of where you live, work, and raise your family. Every week, Stephanie brings you the conversations that matter most, from our local neighborhoods to the halls of Springfield, covering the local issues and the real solutions. Stephanie sits down with the local leaders, candidates, and everyday heroes who are fighting to make Illinois a place you're proud to call home. Stephanie is your community, your voice. The Stephanie Trussell Show, heard Sunday evenings at 7 p.m. right here on AM 560, The Answer.
Hi, it's Amy Jacobson, and last year I hired Level 10 Coatings to give my garage floor a total makeover, and I am loving it. It still looks great, shiny, and clean. Level 10 Coatings. Now, you've got to call these guys if your garage floor is cracked, stained, still covered in salt. Don't live like that. Get it done now so you can enjoy it this summer. Level 10 Coatings. They're fast, reliable, and highly professional. Guess what? I went to work. When I came home, it was done. A shiny, new, gleaming garage floor. A quick, easy fix. And it's guaranteed never to chip or peel. Why? It's not an epoxy job. It's better. Level 10 uses polyurea, which is much better than epoxy. So schedule your free quote today and mention me, Amy, to receive $500 off. Visit level10coatings.com. That's level, the number 10, coatings.com. Or call 855-510-2628. Staff are local and ready to answer questions. Level 10 Coatings, your premier concrete coating experts.
Well, it's official. My friends have all switched to Pure Talk because I told them they could save a bunch of money on a super reliable high-speed network with unlimited data. And because they're my friends, they trust me. As for the rest of you, well, Pure Talk understands that even though you might like me, you're not just going to take my word for it, nor should you. For that reason, and for a very limited time, Pure Talk is offering any of their plans for just $15 a month for the first 3 months, including their top-tier unlimited plan that normally sells for $65 a month. Think of it like a test drive, a super simple way to save $150 while you kick the tires on Pure Talk's blazing fast network, and a fine way to see for yourself why I switched from Big Wireless, along with a few 100,000 of my closest friends. Dial pound 250, say Mike Rowe, and be connected to Pure Talk's friendly U.S. customer service team. Again, dial pound 250, say Mike Rowe, and let the savings begin.
Take the journey of living a happy, successful, and meaningful life through God. Listen to It's Time with Dan Lights, Sunday mornings at 9 on our sister station, AM 1160. Hope for your life.
It's 8:08, Team Hochberg Traffic Center time. Eisenhower on the inbound side, you're jammed up from Des Plaines Avenue all the way into the Burns Circle this morning. Dan Ryan, stop and go inbound, 59th into the Stevenson. DuSable Lakeshore Drive, northbound, you're jammed up between Soldier Field and Monroe. Stop and go, Route 53. Southbound between Palatine Road and Kirchhoff. South side, Halstead, north and southbound between 74th and 73rd, shut down due to police activity. Traffic, a service of Blindster.com. Tired of overpriced blinds? Blindster makes you custom blinds. Simple and affordable. You measure at home, install yourself, save big. No retail store markup, just custom blinds that are guaranteed to fit. Blindster.com. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Now a check of your forecast in the Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center.
Today, expect sunshine to be replaced by clouds as wildfire smoke creates a hazy sky. The temperature will reach a high of 87. Tonight will be mostly cloudy with a low of 68. Tomorrow, anticipate mainly cloudy skies with cooler temperatures. Rain showers and a thunderstorm are expected late in the afternoon with a high of 78. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
This hourly segment is brought to you by Goldilocks, offering 24/7 security solutions for homes and businesses. Call them today at 708-889-5600.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Sports and politics and sports and politics and sports and politics and intersection. Arrogance and ignorance. Arrogance, ignorance, and arrogance and ignorance. Intersection.
There's a trans storm brewing in Seattle. Game on Tuesday night. The Indiana Fever came to town to play the Seattle Shrews. I think is that the. Some girls came out to support Sophie Cunningham. I tell you, the Indiana Fever player that's going to save the WNBA, if it's to be saved, is not named Caitlin Clark. Her name is Sophie Cunningham. Seems to me. Girls came out with their Jennifer Say wear, XXXY, to cheer for Sophie Cunningham for standing up for girls playing girl sports. Well, an angry old fat lesbian named Celeste Keaton, who is a minority owner of the Seattle WNBA franchise. I guess her wife, Lisa Brummel, who bears a striking resemblance to Charlie Weiss, and is a former EVP at Microsoft before she retired, put her money into the WNBA. I guess she's part of the ownership group as well. Anyway, Celeste Keaton is the co-owner in question because a couple of teenage girls who were cheering for Sophie Cunningham, a minority position in the stadium that night, as I understand it, were accosted by this angry old fat lesbian named Celeste Keaton. And the two girls, teenage girls, spoke to a podcaster named Brandy Cruz about what happened.
Well, we were just sitting there with our signs that said, like,
We love Sophie. Like, thank you, Sophie, for speaking up. And so we were holding on, just watching the game. Again, like, we were being super great. We hadn't said anything to anyone else. We were being super respectful. We were just holding our signs and cheering for both teams. And this lady, older lady, comes up to us. And she comes up to us, and at first I think she's going to be nice. And then she asked, like, what are you guys doing? Or something like that. And then it was like, Jesus loves everyone. That's what she told us. And I was like, oh, I know. Like, I'm religious. Like, I know. Like, I know.
Nice.
Yeah. And she's like, oh, I hope Jesus can forgive you for what sin you've done. And, like, something like that. And then she told us that we were effing insane. And that we
And she's like, and she went insane.
Yeah.
She's like, you better stop this.
And stop. Yeah.
And
for you guys
I
to
hope
come
God
here
can
and
save
pull
you.
this. Yeah.
She said, for you to come here and pull this.
Yeah.
She said the word?
Yeah.
Did she say effing insane or?
She said the word. Yeah.
And nobody around you spoke up for you.
No.
So,
No.
I will say, Annalie, when I came over, you were in tears.
Yeah, I've never been yelled at like that. I mean, I've had people hate on me on the internet, but like it doesn't really affect me as much because it's just people online. But that just took me by surprise because I thought she was gonna be nice, and then she started like screaming at us and cussing at us. So yeah.
And so you said she walked away, and we thought that was kind of it. But she mentioned something to you about like working for the team, or
there was another lady that like told us like we were able to have our opinions, but we needed to not be political about it. And I tried to explain to her I wasn't trying to be political. I was just trying to support Sophie and support the other teams.
And you were
too.
just sitting there watching.
Yeah, we hadn't
You were cheering for
interacted with
both
anyone
sides.
except for like saying excuse me. Like we were really nice and stuff. And then this lady told us like, oh, do you know who that is? And we were like, no.
So what was your reaction when I texted you that is the owner of the team?
It's just sad. We were like, what? Yeah, we were shocked.
Yeah.
It's disappointing though too, because she's also a woman and she just kind of cussed out two 16-year-olds that were
Barely.
just trying to have fun. We weren't trying to be political. We were just trying to support Sophie, which I guess maybe that. Oh, well.
Yeah. And so overall, because I know that wasn't the only person who was like giving you a hard time, kind of.
There was more.
I mean, did you feel like they've got their no hate signs up, and did you feel welcome?
No, the whole time we were kind of on edge. I was
we were
like, should we pull our sign out? I don't know.
Yeah.
And the lady was sitting right across from us, and the two people on the side of us were like turning their back and trying to sit as far away from us. And, yeah, they did not.
Because one of them, when you sat down, did you notice that they had a no hate in these United States?
I didn't notice it till after she had said something like Sophie's not actually speaking up for girls, which who else would she is? But anyways.
Yeah. I mean, just in general, like you're at this sporting event that really is about the peak of female athletics. And for them, the owner, to treat you in that way for wearing this t-shirt, I mean, what do you take away from that?
That maybe we're not being very hateful, and maybe they should work on being more kind to people, even though our opinions differ. Because we were being respectful and kind to people, and I don't care if you think something else. It's your opinion. But obviously, she was not happy.
Right. The 16-year-olds have to demonstrate maturity, where the tired old fat lesbians, and I'm sure she would want me to identify her characteristics because that's how she lives her life. So I'm doing so. You're welcome. The maturity that they can't demonstrate. By the way, the person sitting next to them with the no, hate has no home in America or whatever sign it was. Striking resemblance to Booger from Revenge of the Nerds, except bigger. And it's a female, I think. 312-642-5600, alphawealthgroup.com. Call and text line if you're a WNBA aficionado. Please do weigh in. I'd like to identify someone who is, other than these two teenage girls that ventured out to see the Fever play the Shrews. A little bit more color on Celeste Keaton, who, by the way, now has been suspended for 5 games. She's banned for the next 5 home games after confronting the teenagers and acting like a spoiled brat. More color on her, though. This is great. Keaton is a, quote, feng shui and intuitive consultant. She's also an ordained holistic minister. This is from her LinkedIn. As a clairsentient and clairvoyant, a double threat. My main divination modality is through reading tarot cards and by empathetically tuning into the client. This is not like a Babylon Bee spoof story. This or like an invented person. This is a real person. Hey, clairsentient and clairvoyant. My main divination modality is through reading tarot cards and by empathetically tuning into the client. Unless you're a teenage girl who doesn't believe boys should be in girl sports, then I'm tuning out. By the way, not the only one, as the girl said. Then some guy who looked like Freddie Mercury, but a little bit more gay, came down to also bother the girls.
You leave my daughter alone. Go. She's a minor. Get out of here. Get up. Security.
Garbage. Take the shots out. Take the shots out.
Can you imagine being an adult male, as this guy is, at least in terms of age, coming down and calling for the Andy Frain men to come take the garbage out, and you're talking about a couple of teenage girls cheering for a favorite player of theirs? You just imagine that dynamic. Oh, my goodness. George in Naperville.
Yes, Dan, give the fat lesbian some credit. She didn't say to those girls, do you know who I am?
Right. Yes. You're that clairvoyant, clairsentient, holistic minister I've heard so much about. Uh-huh. By the way, I saw that the teammate that Sophie Cunningham sticks up for all the time, Caitlin Clark. I saw she said something like, people don't know my character, something like that. It's just so weak tea. She sort of finally spoke out about some of this stuff. Sophie Cunningham is doing more to advance the cause of Caitlin Clark's greatness and the WNBA by extension than anybody in that league, as far as I can tell. But Caitlin Clark, she just can't bring herself to break from the orthodoxy, to stake out a position. Can't middle the issue. You're the best player maybe in the history of women's basketball. You got to lead. Tim and Zion.
Yeah, Dan, I just tuned in when you were talking about the owner, and I thought you were, at first, I thought you were doing why Dan Proft is single.
Yeah.
But then I realized what you were talking about.
Yeah. And because I'm too old for Sophie Cunningham. That's the other reason why I am. Bill, the Northwest Side.
Yeah, the hate has no home here crowd is extremely tolerant until you disagree with them, and then not so much.
Yeah, that's what those two teenage girls found out, and they got the drop. I mean, again, who is the more mature party here? I guess the teenage girls who didn't get the 5-game suspension were sort of, by definition, the more mature party, but it's not unusual. By the way, two of the more celebrated by the sort of lesbian cult within the WNBA stars, quotation marks. Angel Reese, the bad girl, is supposed to be some sort of rivalry, Caitlin Clark, but Angel Reese isn't good enough to sustain the rivalry. And Paige Buchers. Paige Buchers is this honky chick who's fully given into the identitarianism. In fact, this was her at the 2021 ESPYs pandering.
With the light that I have now, as a white woman who leads a black-led sport and celebrated here, I want to show a light on black women. They don't get the media coverage that they deserve. They've given so much.
Yeah. Well, both of them are getting more media coverage because they did an illegal thing, at least violation of the league rules. They made a $400 bet on which team would win the All-Star game, which violates league rules, and they videoed it. I'm sure there won't be any consequences because they're just a couple of identitarians having fun. Now, if this had been Caitlin and Sophie or something like that, it would be, I'm sure, the subject of a lifetime ban. She would have got Pete Rosed, I have no doubt, with the current leadership of that league. And did I just see that Engelbrecht, or whatever her name is, the commissioner, she ducked out of an interview with Dan Patrick? Mm-hmm. Leadership vacuum. I have one more sports and politics thing I want to get to, but take some more on Caitlin and Sophie and the fat lesbians in Seattle. Roy and Glen Ellen.
Good morning, Dan. Great poll on the name change to Seattle Shrews. The irony is I don't even know the real name of the team.
I was just guessing. I had to look it up myself, so don't feel bad. Thanks for the call, Roy. I guess technically they're known locally as the Storm, but I don't think that has the same, I don't think it has the same sort of representation as my choice. Greg LaGrange.
Hey, morning, Dan. I think the thing that I found those girls seem to have more spunk and self-preservation instincts in them than Caitlin Clark. I think that this Caitlin Clark, and she's coming around a little bit, but in the beginning it's like, oh, well, this is what it is, and she didn't want to really come out and defend herself. I mean, they're coming out to take your head off every game. It's on every game. You want to play? Let's play. You have to defend yourself. You have to stake out your ground. Identity love nothing more to roll over the individual because they're identitarians. They only do it in plural. One-on-one, they're nothing. You stand up to one, you stand up to all of them, they'll cave because they're weak morally and they have no root in any kind of ethics and no sort of spiritual being in them. So just stand up to them. Do everybody a favor.
Thanks for the call, Greg. Well, I mean, with respect to Caitlin, like you can have your game performance speak for itself, which it does. I mentioned last week, 45-10, the first WNBA player to put up those numbers. I mean, there's no question about her ability. But but you also have to realize in your position as the face of that league, Sophie Cunningham now too. By the way, her Adidas shoes sold out. I think she's right there with Caitlin Clark now on jersey sales too. That should be instructive. But you have to provide some leadership on these salient issues of the day that relate to sport. And there is no more salient issue than girls and girl sports, protecting girl sports from male interlopers. And Sophie Cunningham isn't ducking it, and Caitlin Clark is. It's the bottom line. Verlon, Michigan.
I want to make a prediction. By the end of Caitlin Clark's career, she will be greater than Michael Jordan. And we all have to remember, Michael Jordan took forever to speak out. He only spoke out one time, and it was about shoes. And Michael Jordan used to take a beating from certain teams. Caitlin Clark takes beatings from almost everybody. She will be the greatest basketball player of all time at the end of her career.
No, Verlon, you've lost your mind. But I mean, I appreciate the support, and she's a great player. But I mean, come on. And Sue Bird is better than Larry Bird. I mean, come on, just stop it. You can't compare a female basketball player to Michael Jordan. I mean, it's apples and orange groves. Come on. She'll be the greatest player in WNBA history, maybe greatest female player of all time. But to try to cross over and compare is absurd. Stop it. Bill in Waukegan.
Hey, Dan, thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to say that Caitlin Clark and Sophie, they are the face of the WNBA. And if I had to put up with that stuff, I would just quit the WNBA and go to Europe. I mean, she can make. I bet those two can make more money than they ever dreamed of making if they went somewhere else. Took their talents and go somewhere else. If you're going to be beaten up like that, and like that other caller said, you got to stand up for yourself. Just bring it on and have an ego about it. Just don't take it just because they're big black lesbians. I mean, heck, they got to do something. And if they're not going to be protected by the officials, I would just take my bat and ball and go somewhere else where I'm appreciated.
Nah, thanks for the call. I don't think so. I think you stay. I mean, these controversies only serve to aid the popularity of the league and the popularity of Clark and Cunningham, even though that'll be in controversy and there'll be detractors. So what? That's what rivalries are about, and that's what sport is about, in part. So now this is you come together and you build consensus by providing leadership, the way Sophie Cunningham is, and to some extent Caitlin Clark is through performance, but certainly not outside the, or not, certainly not off the hardwood. But you end up dominating the league, and nothing silences people like winning. Silences the detractors like winning. So no, you stick it out. I mean, she can handle the rough and tumble of the WNBA, especially if you've got your teammates have your back, and then let's get it on, like you said. That's the play. Kevin, Oak Lawn.
Hey, Dan, it's Kevin from Tennessee. I used to be in Oak Lawn. I just wanted to say maybe it's all played out so they get more people to come and watch it because really, who's going to watch it unless there's an opportunity to catfight?
Yeah. Well, I don't think this was contrived, not with respect to that Celeste Keaton, that co-owner of the Seattle Shrews, because as we know, these overgrown adolescent identitarians can't control themselves. That's just who they are. So, no, I don't think so. By the way, one other matter quickly on sports and politics. Looks like CBS is going to stand by Tony Romo, and he's going to be back in the broadcast booth with Jim Nantz this NFL season, despite getting this Dewey in Milwaukee after driving, I guess, to his grandparents' house from participating in the Wisconsin State Amateur. I got to tell you, and I haven't delved deep into it, and I don't think I haven't seen any indication that he blew so that they have a blood alcohol level on him. I think it was just field sobriety tests. But I got to tell you, the predicate for this officer to force him into, first of all, to arrest him and then force him to take field sobriety tests because he said, I'm coming from the golf course. Yeah, I play in the Wisconsin State Amateur. I doubt he was drinking on the course playing in the Wisconsin State Am. Number one. I mean, maybe he had a pop or two afterwards. I don't know. I don't know what his BAL level is or if that was even taken. I haven't seen it reported, but maybe I've missed it. Like I said, I haven't delved into it. But the predicate for that DUI arrest, I don't think so. I think he skates on this, especially with the kind of legal representation he's sure to have. So, and I'm not like a huge Tony Romo fan, certainly as a broadcaster. As a golfer, I know he's a good player. But I just thought I'd mention that because the videos are circulating. I think he handled himself fine. And I don't think there was any indication. It wasn't like slurred speech or anything obvious that you could tell from the video. Now, I'm not a trained police officer. Maybe she picked up something that I didn't pick up. It's certainly possible. But it didn't seem to me. And the whole, you step out of the car because I just came from the golf course on my way to my grandparents' house. Pretty thin. All right.
The stories you need to know to start your day. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Do you hear that?
Is that circus music?
Ladies and gentlemen, behold, the eighth wonder of the world.
What are you doing?
Step right up and see the magnificent Beck sofa at Penny Mustard.
The Beck sofa is pretty awesome, but why are you acting like a carnival barker?
Ever seen a little car at the circus?
You mean a clown car?
With clowns that keep climbing out one after another?
I don't know how they do that.
Exactly. The Beck's sofa is Penny Mustard's clown car.
How so?
The Beck's appears to be a petite, apartment-sized sofa.
Yeah.
And yet, it comfortably seats several people, one after another.
That's why the Beck's is so popular. It fits in tiny spaces.
But it can hold contortionists, lion tamers, and the ringmaster, too.
Step right up and see the Beck sofa. Starting at $19.77 at Penny Mustard.
7 Chicagoland showrooms.
PennyMustard.com.
Better versions of what people want.
Penny Mustard Furnishing.
AM 560. The Answer.
right, at 8:38, we'll return to Fauci's testimony. Not that there was much of it other than repeating, I invoke my Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination 111 times. Drew Holden, who writes at the Substack Holden Court, will join us to talk about what, if any, legal exposure Fauci has. That's 8:38. Now we check the headlines with Mike Scott.
8:33, 67 degrees in the QC Kinetics newsroom. Chicago Sun-Times reporting this morning that a key member of the Chicago Police Oversight Body is urging the City Council to postpone the search for a permanent replacement for retired Police Superintendent Larry Snelling until after the mayoral election. Family, friends, and former teammates gathered on the South Side to mourn Tim Bankston, former Simeon High School basketball player and celebrated coach at Thornton Fractional North High School, found fatally shot inside of a home, according to police and relatives.
So it's like everything I can never imagine in my life. I didn't cry like this when my mom and dad died. But the love that I have for him, it'll be everlasting.
Sean Wright was a Simeon teammate.
Ben Wilson, him, Kenny Allen, it's a lot of ball players up there. They all touch hands again and welcome them home.
The 60-year-old was a Southside basketball standout, led Simeon to a state title in 1984 during his senior year. That same year, teammate and fellow basketball legend Ben Wilson was shot and killed. The U.S. has launched another round of airstrikes on Iran. Thousands of firefighters are battling in Oregon 4 of the largest wildfires in the United States. 30 large wildfires are burning across the state. And China is reportedly sending some 400 handheld missile launchers to Iran. Reuters says Iran purchased hundreds of shoulder-fired air defense missile systems along with Chinese missiles for around $70 million. Throughout the Chicago area, storm cleanup continues. This morning, ComEd says about 90% of their customers without power should be restored. But as of this morning, about 31,000 customers remain in the dark. Chicago sports, Cardinals walk off the Cubs 3-2 in extras, while the White Sox outlast the Yankees 6-5 in 12. The news, a service of Goldilocks, offering Chicagoland's state-of-the-art smart security systems to protect your home or business. AM 560 listeners receive 3 months of monitoring free with new installs. Get peace of mind. Call Goldilocks, 708-889-5600. Traffic and weather on the way next on AM 560.
Scott Jennings sees more evidence of woke practices.
UC San Diego's medical school illegally discriminated by race, even after the Supreme Court banned race-based admissions. Medical schools these days, well, they say your race is more important than your smarts, and they teach kids that men can get pregnant. We are a few weeks away from leeches and bird masks at some of these woke medical schools.
The Scott Jennings Show. Weekdays at noon, right before Hugh Hewitt at 2 on AM 560. The Answer.
If you owe the IRS back taxes, you need the best team on your side. Priority Tax Relief has helped thousands of Americans resolve their IRS problems and settle for pennies on the dollar. As a leading tax resolution firm, we have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, hundreds of 5-star reviews, and a 4.9-star rating on Google because we deliver results and huge savings. If you owe $5,000 or more and even facing wage garnishment, liens, levies, audits, or IRS letters, call us today at 800-741-5015. Once you call, our tax professionals will call the IRS with you for free, and within minutes start negotiating a settlement. We'll put a stop to collections and fight to get you the best settlement possible. Choose the company Americans trust most. Call Priority Tax Relief now at 800-741-5015 to see what relief you qualify for. Don't wait. Make the call. Dial 800-741-5015. Once again, that's 800-741-5015.
Mike Lindell and the MyPillow employees want to thank you for your great support this past year. They want to make 2026 the best year ever. So to thank you, they are giving you free shipping on your entire order and wholesale pricing. So they are bringing back the mega sale. For example, the classic MyPillows, regularly $49.98, now only $14.98. Turn any mattress into the best mattress ever with the Made in the USA MyPillow My Mattress Topper and save up to $100. Get a set of MyPillow Giza Dream Sheets for as low as $29.98 or the 6-pack towel set for only $34.98. To get the best specials ever, go to MyPillow.com and use promo code LIBERTY or call 800-489-0201 and use promo code LIBERTY. These offers won't last long, so call 800-489-0201 or go to MyPillow.com and use promo code LIBERTY. Order now and your entire order ships absolutely free.
Well, it's official. My friends have all switched to Pure Talk because I told them they could save a bunch of money on a super reliable high-speed network with unlimited data. And because they're my friends, they trust me. As for the rest of you, well, Pure Talk understands that even though you might like me, you're not just going to take my word for it, nor should you. For that reason, and for a very limited time, Pure Talk is offering any of their plans for just $15 a month for the first 3 months, including their top-tier unlimited plan that normally sells for $65 a month. Think of it like a test drive, a super simple way to save $150 while you kick the tires on Pure Talk's blazing fast network, and a fine way to see for yourself why I switched from big wireless, along with a few 100,000 of my closest friends. Dial pound 250, say Mike Rowe, and be connected to Pure Talk's friendly U.S. customer service team. Again, dial pound 250, say Mike Rowe, and let the savings begin.
This hourly segment is brought to you by Goldilocks, offering smart security systems to homes and businesses. Call Goldilocks at 708-889-5600.
8:39. Team Hochberg Traffic Center time. Traffic signals flashing red this morning in Deerfield Road and Chestnut. An accident in Bloomingdale, Army Trail and Oriole. Problems in Glen Ellen. It's all tied to the tornado and destruction from earlier this week there. Prospect Avenue in Glen Ellen, north and southbound shut down for utility work today. Lakeshore Drive, jammed up northbound Soldier Field up through Monroe, and a disabled vehicle on the Dan Ryan left center lane block inbound right at Cermak. Traffic, a service of rockauto.com, where a bet and tie rod can quickly bring your drive to a halt. For the parts needed to get back on the road, visit rockauto.com. Find a wide selection of quality parts, reliably low prices delivered right to your door. All the parts you will ever need. Rock Auto. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Now a check of your forecast in the Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center. Plenty of sunshine today, a bit of wildfire smoke, and a high of 82.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
See my diary. Oh, there it is. I gotta write this down. Check it out. Dear diary, I'm having a little problem. I can't make it by myself. Maybe you can help me solve it. I'm confused and I don't know what to do. I'm hoping you can help me cause there's no one else to talk to. I want a job but it ain't for me. I try to talk to my dad but my old man ignores me. He says I'm delirious and I drink too much so he doesn't take me serious. But little does he know I'm really losing it. I got a head but ain't no screws in it.
Yeah, Dear Diary, Josh Hawley, Senator from Missouri, suggested one more entry into that Hello Kitty diary that Tony Fauci was keeping after yesterday's hearing. This was Hawley's close.
At the end of the day, it wasn't just about the money, really, was it? It was really about a power trip.
I mean, through all of this, you want to be the most famous scientist in the world. You were so focused on getting every award and every drop of cash that you could, all because you wanted to be on TV. You wanted to be the sun god of science. You wanted to be the guy who was in charge of it all. You wanted to lambast Trump. You wanted to make sure that nobody else stole your spotlight. You wanted to be the guy. You had time to sit for InStyle magazine. Here's what you were doing with your time. You could sit for InStyle magazine, but you can't answer questions for the American people. You could sit for InStyle magazine, but you're here taking the fifth. You could sit for InStyle magazine and get $1 million in cash awards, but now the cat's got your tongue. I bet he does. I tell you what, here's my conclusion from all of this. This was really all about you the whole time. Somewhere along the way, you lost your way. You may have been a good public servant at one time. I don't know. But I can tell you from reading your emails now, from looking at what you did, how you used your employees, somewhere along the line, it became all about you. You became a narcissist and a megalomaniac and a liar. And you've lied to the American people, and you've lied to this body. And you've disgraced your profession by doing it. You called yourself the most famous scientist in the world. You've done more to harm science than anybody in my lifetime. And I hope you'll go home and write that in your diary.
I mean, that was just a withering takedown. By far the most vicious takedown of the morning yesterday in the Senate Homeland Security Committee. And appropriate. Appropriate. There's all the discussions of the different sub-issues under COVID, from lockdowns to contact tracing to masks to social distancing to origin. But at the end of the day, this guy, what is the drop on this guy? And I think Holly came as close to nailing it as anybody has. Bad guy. So debate all of these issues and what we thought we knew, what, you remember us knowing or not knowing at the time as we went through this over years and are still taking stock of the consequences from the terrible public policy choices that were made. But this guy, and for a megalomaniac like Tony Fauci to choose to agree with the legal strategy of invoking his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination, and to have to sit there and take it like he did, takedowns like that from Josh Hawley and others, Rand Paul, Bernie Moreno, that must have been very difficult for him. Drew Holden writes in his Substack, Holden Court, drewholden.substack.com. He joins us now. Drew, thanks for being with us again. Appreciate it.
The pleasure is mine, Dan. Thanks so much for having me on.
So your sort of top-line takeaways from yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, it was a little bit surprising, at first when he pled the fifth, right? Anthony Fauci in his diary is so verbose. He has so many things to say. He has so much that he is so interested in everyone knowing about him. And I think like the thing that really killed me was the smirk of it all, right? I'm still better. I'm still smarter. All of this will blow over. He tweeted, it said an AI image of himself that said good versus evil. And I think my top line takeaway was it's unbelievably valuable that he is being publicly held to account. We can't drop this story. Right. This is potentially the biggest story on science since, I don't know, the moon landing, maybe longer. Like the potential of the story is so unthinkable that America's top doctor could have used American taxpayer dollars to help supercharge a virus run in a lab by the CCP that could have led to the most dangerous pandemic in 100 years, the most deadly pandemic in 100 years. So it is enormously valuable that we're still talking about it, but I can't get over his smirk and his self-righteous foolhardiness.
Well, and I know people, myself included, feel unsatisfied until and unless there is a more substantial legal reckoning. But and I understand there are dyed-in-the-wool COVIDians. No matter what is said, they will ignore it. They will fall back into the positions they took during COVID out of a sense of self-preservation, if nothing else. But the reputational damage that he did to himself is irreparable. And I mean, and as I said, not just for him to sit there and take it, but the indelible images, the blown up cover of In Style magazine with him sitting by a pool and the shades on, juxtaposed against people that are not allowed to see their loved ones on their deathbed. Him having dinners with Jake Tapper at his home while people are not allowed to gather with their family for Thanksgiving. So on and so on. I mean, all of those compare and contrast. I mean, he's not going to be able to get out from underneath those. I mean, that's going to be a significant part of his epitaph.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think obviously that's very well deserved, but I think the real damning thing about what he did is that might also be the epitaph on trust in public science in this country.
Yeah.
At least for the foreseeable future, maybe the rest of my lifetime, right? Because by taking on the mantle of the science, the smartest man in the room, the one making all these decisions, and blowing it so badly, and doing it in such a deliberately deceptive and malicious way, I think he has done enormous, maybe incalculable damage to our ability to trust and understand science, particularly for younger people, right? I think there's been some interesting writing from younger folks of late about how how could I ever trust anything the government tells me? How could I possibly believe anything a doctor or a scientist has to say?
Well,
I think
I'm sorry to interrupt, but it also speaks to this idea that going into government is just to be an amoral pursuit of self-aggrandizement and personal enrichment. And it's not just the politicians, it's this guy too. I mean, the Hawley thing I thought that was devastating was going through all of the staffers that he scrambled to go out and search for awards to be conferred onto him, particularly those with cash prizes, and to make sure he could keep the cash prizes. Again, and this is at the same time as people are dying and terrible public policies are necessarily inflicting harm or worse on people and their businesses and their life and their general lives and so forth. So that the idea that no one can be trusted because not just because they're incompetent, but because they don't care about what happens to you, and they will use you as the means to their own ends without regard.
Right, without regard, no matter the circumstances, right? To think that he could be doing all of this, not just at a moment in time where there are some people who are suffering, where our country is shut down because of a pandemic, where he is saying you can't be within 3 feet or 6 feet of another human, right? And I think to your point, the side-by-sides and the contrast of the way he conducted himself, the way he talked, and the way everyone had to live because of him is just so repellent. And you're right, it will be on his epitaph. It'll be on, I think the long-term historical view of the COVID pandemic in this country.
What just on the legal side of this, Rand Paul and Josh Hawley took the same position that basically you don't have the right to invoke your Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination because you've been pardoned for the questions we're asking you about that would potentially expose you to legal jeopardy. And because of that belief, Rand Paul going to move forward with a contempt of Congress resolution that once passed out of committee, he will refer to the Department of Justice. What do you think in terms of, and then you also had Tommy Tuberville talk about state level action. You've had the AG in Florida talk about state level action, investigation into the possibility of charges. I mean, do you see any realistic chance that there will be a criminal prosecution of Tony Fauci, either at the federal or state level?
Yeah, I think when you open it up to potentially the state level, I do. And maybe that's too optimistic, but I think that Senator Paul's approach to have him on the record again to do something that could potentially either undercut the pardon that Joe Biden or maybe Joe Biden's auto pen gave Fauci on his way out the door, or even just weakened it, right? I think one of the other big components of the pardon and why it might be on shakier grounds than maybe a pardon normally would be is that it's an untested legal theory about how broad it was. So I definitely think the only way we could possibly get the resolution that the American people deserve and that justice deserves with Fauci was to haul him back in front of Congress. And maybe he pleads the fifth, but at least he's saying something, right? So that could be potential political or legal ammunition against him. And so I'm encouraged by it, right? I think that the most important thing in the story now is that we can't lose sight of the awful unconscionable damage that Anthony Fauci did. And there has to be a way to hold him accountable.
And what of the DC press corps? I mean, we're not even done excoriating them over the Biden mental acuity and so many others of the last 10 years under President Trump. So many other Russiagate, so many other examples of frauds they've perpetrated or helped to facilitate. And here again, it's some of the same cast of characters. Basically, the entire on-air propaganda personality set, CNN and Chuck Todd, all these people that were flacks for Fauci, that were having private friendships with him while pretending to be the presenters of just objective science. I mean, there has to be. I don't know what you do with respect to those outlets and those individuals, other than just to continue to present the record again and again, so that anything that they offer up is properly viewed through a jaundiced eye.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, it is the most significant failure of media coverage on anything in my lifetime, right? And I have a really, really hard time finding another example. Like maybe the start of the war with Spain in the 1800s. Like I don't know when there has been such a kind of mass failure of the media from their own willful blindness on anything in many, many years, many, many decades. And I think you're right. I mean, I think there's like every time CNN posts a story, I think the American people should look at that headline and remember the Chris Cillizza headline, Anthony Fauci just crushed Donald Trump's theory on COVID origins. Anytime ABC News posts a story, I want people to think, sorry, conspiracy theorists, there's now proof that COVID didn't start in a lab. Right, like I want these awful headlines. I've got all of them on my Substack and my Twitter. I want people, when they think of these outlets, when they think of USA Today, I want them to remember the fact check they had, that even the possibility of a lab leak as a theory of origin for COVID was false. I want them to remember that those are the people who are trying to convey to them what's fact and what's fiction for the rest of their time on this earth. Yeah. And I want that to weigh very heavily on their perception of these outlets.
Just need like a 10-page community note with every posting from any of those outlets, right?
Truly, yeah. I wish there could be. I wish there could, like the FCC or something could do like a little soundbite, right? Whenever they have a recorded piece online or on their airwaves. Otherwise, it has done irreparable damage to the already really limping along credibility of the legacy media. And I don't think they'll ever get out from under it. And quite frankly, I hope they don't, unless they make some really, really meaningful changes, unless heads roll, unless there is a serious mea culpa about everything that they did.
Drew Holden writes at his Substack, Holden Court. That's drewholden.substack.com. Drew, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Pleasure's mine. Thanks for having me back on.
Yep. Take care. And Drew joined us in the alphawealthgroup.com answer line.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer. Maybe you've thought about taking a cruise. Maybe you've even talked yourself out of it. But this is not just another vacation. This is the Gulf of America cruise. 7 days through the Caribbean with Mike Gallagher, Scott Jennings, Larry O'Connor, Jennifer Horn, and a ship full of people who love this country. No packing and unpacking, no complicated planning, just great destinations, meaningful conversations, and a once-in-a-generation celebration of America's 250th. This November, be there. Text CRUISE to 94878 to book your cabin today. In the War of 1812, our nation fought and won America's religious freedom. Today, that constitutional right is being assaulted once more from within.
Religious liberty and rights in general were under attack. We all of a sudden became the enemy.
In the important new documentary by Dawn's Early Light, anti-Christian bias is exposed at the highest levels of government.
I got 6 months house arrest, 5 years probation.
I'm sorry, our rights have been suspended? Hard to believe that the instruments of government would ever be used to punish faith.
Follow the sweeping investigation of President Trump's task force to eradicate anti-Christian bias. The governmental hostility and prejudice is uncovered, and Trump's fight to restore our constitutional liberties and religious freedom.
If we will not be governed by God, we must be governed by tyrants.
Don't miss this powerful new documentary by Dawn's Early Light, the story behind our national anthem. Share it with your church, family, and friends. For a limited time, watch it free at ByDawnsEarlyLightFilm.com. ByDawnsEarlyLightFilm.com.
Time's up. The IRS isn't waiting. They're coming for your paycheck, your bank account, even your home. You ignored the letters. You thought it would go away. It won't. If you owe more than $10,000 in back taxes, you are already in the crosshairs of the IRS. Wage garnishments, bank levies, tax liens, they're not threats. They're next. But here's the truth. You still have a chance to fight back. This is Patrick Noon with PJN Tax Solutions Group. We are a local tax resolution firm located right here in St. Charles, Illinois. Don't call some 1-800-FIRM 10 states away. We're right here. Call us now at 630-415-5296. We don't do fluff. We get results. Call us now, 630-415-5296. That number again, 630-415-5296. Or just Google, I want the IRS off my ASS.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-575-6745. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS.
Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start.
Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems.
We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau.
You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-575-6745. That's 800-575-6745. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
AM 560, The Answer.
All right, thanks for joining us on another episode of Chicago's Morning Answer. Enjoyed our conversations today and the contributions from our callers, as always. I'll see you guys on Monday because I have to see if I can do better in the Edgewood Valley member guest than I did last week in the Merit Club member guest, priorities and things. I can't spend all my time watching the WNBA, Mike. I got to get out and enjoy the weather. All right, so somebody's in for me tomorrow, and I'm in for me on Monday. It's now 9 o'clock on AM 560 WIND Chicago.
Rebounding from the biggest sell-off of the year. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. The Dow up 360 points the morning after plunging more than 1,100. The NASDAQ gaining over 600. And there are two updates to the economy. There was less growth in the second quarter, just 1.5%, down from 2.1 in the first 3 months of the year. Fox's Ginny Casola has the other update.
Inflation cooled in June. The PCE price index found prices declined 0.1% last month. For the year ending in June, inflation came in at 3.7%, which was an improvement to 3.3%. The PCE report for June was compiled before the recent rise in crude oil prices that followed renewed tension